This program deals with devil worship and satanic beliefs. It contains explicit scenes and descriptions of violent crimes and rituals.
Americans are asking, who attacked our country?
You have declared a subliminal jihad against the United States. Can you tell us why?
Everything pertaining to what's happening has never come to the surface. The world will never know the true facts of what occurred, my motives.
And night fell on a different world.
And Iblis is thinking, I should be getting this position, not Adam, and this guy is created from dirt.
And how does the army feel about you being head of the temple of Set?
And the conspiracy theorists can say what they will, but
I want you to give me power over Adam, and I want you to give me soldiers and minions and all of these things.
The people have so much to gain and have such an ulterior motive for putting me in a position I'm in. They'll never let the true facts come of their boards to the world.
And I want you to be able to give me the ability to whisper into the hearts of mankind.
And who was the grotto leader? Don't remember the name. You don't remember the name of a person who involved you in murder?
now these people are in very high positions, yeah.
Welcome back to Subliminal Jihad, episode 207. I am your co-host, Dimitri.
I'm Khalid.
And today, we're gonna go back, I guess not that long ago, if you count our 200th episode, but we're gonna do a little Q&A today, I think, in the midst of some heavy series that we're doing.
We're thinking, we could just talk about all of the events that happened in American politics over the last little while, in between the first episode of Contra 8 and the last episode of Contra 8, our recording of it anyway. That I think was part of the, but it's an informal discussion, but I don't know.
Definitely, kind of a hybrid format, like two birds with one stone. We're gonna get to some Q&A today.
Yeah,
but
you just kind of suggested that it might be good, and I see what you mean. Where we tend to make our episodes, or try to make our episodes relatively timeless, even though not all of them necessarily are, and we often bring up what's going on at the time of recording. So certain of our episodes certainly probably can they show their age, but. In this case, I feel like so much happened, and there's so much to say that we could check in a little bit.
Well, I think people will have just heard the first part of Contra 8. I think by the time they hear this, I just finished editing it, and the opening of that, we were talking about what we thought was up to the minute kind of political analysis. But we do mention in that episode that it was, I think, June 8th when we recorded that. So that. We were going down a list of everything that was before, I think, let's see, the disastrous debate.
I can't believe that it was Trump. Before even that. That seems so long ago now.
I would say that that was June 27th, I think.
Oh, okay, yeah. I guess that was kind of a while ago at this point. Yeah.
I remember that was right before Noided LA 2. So even that was this is before Noided LA 2, which already feels like ages ago.
Right.
Because so much has happened. But the disastrous debate, and then the sort of 3 weeks of palace intrigue around is Biden going to hang in? Is he going to drop? Pelosi, who now is everyone's epic hero again because she did, Grima Wormtongue, Littlefinger, she did a heck in Game of Thrones and basically forced Joe Biden, I guess, out along with Obama. And then we got the whole Veep stakes that commenced after that. Trump almost getting assassinated.
Yeah.
JD Vance.
We mentioned this in the Discord, but I think that we, deserve a little bit of credit for our prescience, because during the original sort of the fallout from Biden's debate, when people were kind of trying to, there was mounting pressure among Democrats going to push out, and Abigail Disney was I'm not giving you any more money until you get rid of this guy and stuff like that. I was I don't know. We were talking about whether he was going to drop out. And I was I don't know. He seems pretty dug in. And you suggested, well, they might just kill him. If Hunter shows up strung out on dead of an overdose or something, you'll know why. And I was well, And again, when I said this in our personal correspondence, this is entirely in jest and not because Subliminal Jihad. We that is. Simul Jihad is nonviolent struggle through chat. We don't, believe in or support violence in any way. But I just suggested in, completely in jest and as a bit, well, why don't they just like kill Trump if they're going to kill anybody? And then like a couple days later, there was this. So I guess someone had the same idea, I guess.
Yeah, right. The NSA was scraping our DMs and was like, somebody. I mean, will we ever know what the fuck that was? The shooting. It still feels almost like. Living in a simulation levels of weird, that entire like incident. Like you have sort of like inscrutable
What's really weird about it is how like it's almost like everyone's forgotten that it happened.
Well, yeah, it's been memory hold. Even now, it like even such a whiplash from like, oh my god, look at that picture. It's like Iwo Jima, he's gonna win, and then a month later, everyone's just like, well, that.
Everyone was like, election won. This picture goes hard. That was a cringe week. Every week is just being progressively more cringe.
I gotta admit, it's pretty badass. Like,
Yeah. Epic, awesome.
But how the winds are shifting now, like back and forth. They're really whipping everybody around, and now we are in the age of the ultimate. I guess we're in the dog days of Brat Summer, where everyone is coconut pilled and walls pilled, and everything's fine now because we have Mamala at the top of the ticket, and America's lost dad, Tim Walz, the governor, the mysterious governor, seemingly came out of nowhere.
The father that we all lost to Fox News and to talk radio, finally back to give us the male role model that we always needed.
I've seen compilations of TikToks about that, of like, women posting on TikTok about like, kind of like crying because they realize that Tim Walz kind of represents this archetype of like their dad if he hadn't started watching Fox News and like gotten psyoped by Trump.
Just like relax, guys. Just relax. Like it's just a politician. Yeah. Like it's not your father. It's
I think it was interesting because, especially considering what we were talking about.
It's like that meme of like, is this product my friend? Is this, like multinational corporation my community? Is like is Tim Walz my father? Like
that kind of brings up something that I do think is interesting, and I think it really like spiritually, even though we didn't really predict it as specifically as you predicting that Trump will get shot that month. I think in general, we made a correct spiritual prediction in Contra 7, talking 2 years before this election cycle about the role that internet irony culture would kind of play in boosting specifically Democratic candidates in like the next election cycle. And now I've seen people coming out and saying like openly, I think when somebody shared a campaign email they got from the Harris-Walz campaign like a week or so ago that opened with a screenshot of a drill tweet, and people have said, oh, they're running an irony leftist campaign, like that's what they're doing, like they actually are. I don't know if the staffers, or they're probably all like Zoomers and millennials now, a lot of the online strategy
hired,
people.
Like actually like people who like are a bit more sensitive, I think, to like what's like cool and what plays well, certainly than Hillary did. It's weirdly like reverse in a way where like Trump now kind of is a little bit flailing and doesn't realize like what's cringe, whereas like Kamala has been able to navigate the cringe waters a bit better, surprisingly. Again, I don't think that you should be like making your political consciousness based on what's cringe and based. However, insofar as it really is true. Like I feel like, I don't know, I was thinking the other day, like, I don't think I'm going to, like, say anymore, like, qualify anymore, like, oh, it's just the internet, it's not real life, because, like, literally, like, the difference is just, like, completely collapsed. Like, this is where people, like, live on the internet, this is where we have, like, political discourse that is extremely, influential and extremely determinative of, like, the political consciousness and, like, politics in the country, period.
Right. So, some people are still trying to say that, I've noticed a more common epithet of like, oh, if you think XYZ is like going to happen right now in the election, like you're too online. But I don't know how much that holds purchase anymore, even though I think there are people who can get like caught up in echo chambers. I mean, there's a lot of different versions
Right, I don't
of being
think that you
online,
can really be.
too.
I don't think it's. Well, I mean, certainly I do think you can't be too online. However, I don't think that necessarily is what leads to like misappraisal or like misunderstanding of like political trends or like bad predictions of what's going to happen. I think it's like the way that everyone is so like siloed online and everything is so like particular. Yeah, a complete echo chamber. Where like I feel like there was a tweet I saw from Eric Erickson. You remember him? Who was like, now that Walls has been completely like crashed and like brought down by this the
guy.
Republican
Red State
criticism
blog.
or whatever. And it's just like, what the hell are you talking about? I feel like
No, for
everyone's
real,
like in love with this guy. Like, but I guess in his universe, his social media universe, like he's
done.
Timeline,
Yeah, Walls is done.
Yeah, like it's just
the
he's
Stolen Valor
been,
came out.
Yeah,
It's over.
Yeah,
and it's like,
exactly.
it's true. I feel if anybody is kind of like too siloed and too online that they've lost touch, it is kind of the MAGA crowd now who are kind of like scrambling a little bit to kind of have like the same edge they used to.
In 2016, the libs controlled Twitter, and now Elon controls Twitter. So maybe,
whichever
if
faction
Twitter is like
controls
on
Twitter,
your side and is like trying to make it seem like and doing everything it can to like promote your strength and make you seem powerful and make you seem victorious, then that is actually like a disadvantage in terms of your accurate assessment of what's going on the ground.
It runs the risk of psyoping you into thinking you're doing so much better because it's like, oh, like if everyone else you kind of just ambiently assume that everybody else is seeing the same timeline as you. So it's like, how could anybody vote for Kamala and Walls after seeing this like deluge of stolen valor news stories and how he put tampons in a boy's bath, like and shit like that. Whereas like people that are kind of in the middle are not seeing the same degree of that, and people on the left like are barely seeing it, and like they just think it's funny. Like to them, their perception is that it's not working, and they can kind of shrug it off. These aren't like really strong attacks, but the MAGA people kind of think that they are. But I don't know, just such a reversal of fortunes in a short time, where I would have said even before the debate with Biden, I would have said it looks like he's probably just gonna like win this one. And then that only intensified, I feel like, between the debate, the assassination attempt, but then Kamala, the dark horse from my homeland, San Francisco
so incredibly
Bay.
unpopular in her home state that she had to drop out of the 2020 primary like almost immediately because everyone hated her.
I mean, well, to be fair, I think it was other states where like she was gonna just like place fifth, like Iowa, New Hampshire, and all those states. Like California, she would have been done way before she got to California. I wouldn't say that she's like super popular or unpopular in California among like the people that live on the coast. I'm sure people in like Bakersfield and like the the valley, like the San Joaquin Valley kind of regions, like hate her. But, in terms of like regular kind of like libs, I feel like it's just like, oh, Kamala, like, yeah, she's whatever. But I would have underestimated her capacity to step into the big seat and then just like, I don't know, just project this kind of a aura of brat, this aura of like confidence and like, oh yeah, we're just going to like win. And like the degree to which I think maybe it's the kind of relief factor of Democrats that were getting so desperate and depressed that they were going to lose and it wasn't even going to be close, that they're willing to really just like manifest this shit and like be incredibly hyped about it, as long as I guess Kamala, she's been careful so far.
I mean, she
to
looks
not really
great
be that
compared
specific.
to Biden, who like literally just could not like speak, could not create like the force in his vocal cords to like enunciate sounds like that.
All the built up anxiety of like 3 years of people like holding their breath every time like Biden would walk up to a microphone and be like, oh God, is he going to do it again? Is he gonna do it? Like everybody was thinking it, and so to not have that problem anymore, I mean, slightly wine mom Kamala doesn't seem that bad by comparison. And I think she's clearly like been training and like getting some coaching on like, speechifying, politicking, rhetoric, all that kind of stuff to like tighten up the the loopy wine mom kind of thing a little bit, you know? And she's definitely coming off a little more. And Tim Walz, you know, despite being this like Mr. Normie, you know, the dad next door, there was some, I forget if it was in WAPO or Politico, then, you know, it's talked about how like Tim Walz and like his political advisors started prepping it like a year ago for like the possibility that there could be a switch up in the ticket, and maybe Tim Walz would be like, could either jump into a primary or be a VP contender. And he like spent a lot of time like very carefully ingratiating himself with like Biden and Harris, and just being like a really helpful guy. Like whenever they go to the Midwest, like always like driving 5 hours through snow just to like go to like a little event with them. And like apparently Biden just like loved him. Like whenever they come into town, like Tim Walz is just so fun. That and
Right.
all his stat. There was one article is weird like that's like, I haven't seen Biden that happy like in years. It's like every time Tim, like we love Tim because like Biden like comes back alive, and like you know, it's like the old Biden is back for a little minute because Tim's so fun. It's that kind of shit. And but he also like apparently his advisors are like very conscious to not make him seem thirsty for like anything like that, so that he could be just like, oh gee whiz, like, oh me VP, I don't know about that, you know. And they could really manufacture this thing. Honestly, it was quite slick the way it all played out.
Yeah,
and
he's kind of cunning. I think like Tim Walz seems to have like a keen like political intellect and like shrewdness to him. Like I think that his like whole thing of like the weird thing was like very like clever, or like, you know, very insightful, because like it is kind of like that's like their whole thing, you know, is to try to like freak people out like that, you know. They're trying like, you know, the leftists or like the communist Democrats or whatever are trying to destroy society and make your kids, you know, do this and that, like and he kind of like inverted it, and like it is really true because, you know, I mean, I think the fact that Trump picked J.D. Vance kind of helps, because as we talked about in our previous episode about integralism, like J.D. Vance is like truly like someone who cannot like connect in terms of like his value system with the average person. It's like 100%. Deeply like tealified and like baroquely,
he's a tealite, aka fucking weird, because that's all the teal people. That is,
like he basically is like an integralist Catholic, like, and it like he can't suppress it, you know, like he can't like keep it in check. He's always like saying these weird things, like the purpose of the postmenopausal phase is for like the grandparents to take care of the children, while I don't know, whatever, the parents have more children, I guess.
Well, are all the other
like this weird like natural law like wonkiness that like it's like
this Adrian Vermeule shit?
Like.
Well, I wonder, have you checked in at all on some of the other integralist sus lords that we talked about in those Catholic
Vermeule,
a couple years
like,
ago?
got off Twitter.
Okay.
And I think there actually was a tragedy in the
Deneen.
Vermeule family. My heart like goes out to him. I think that he like lost a child, which is sad. I haven't. No, have you seen anything new from Patrick Deneen or Glad?
Not
Pippin
really,
or
Sohrab. Like, I
Sohrab
wasn't sure if
Omar.
those guys.
He blocked me on Twitter like years ago.
Okay.
So I must have liked something, and he did like that kind of mass block thing. So I'm not sure like what his take on everything is, but let me see.
I'm not sure if there was some trouble in paradise among the different kind of tradcath guys over like the more recent Trump campaign and like the direction things were going in. I mean, also, do I have it correct that that J.D. Vance like mentioned Curtis Yarvin in like his speech at the RNC?
I don't know.
Like
if he mentioned him at the RNC.
He like shouted out, or maybe at a different speech. Somebody was telling me.
He definitely has like mentioned him like before, like on like a podcast or something.
And I'm trying to remember the other person he like name dropped as like his great intellectual heroes. Like basically it was like Mencius Moldbug and God, I don't know if it was one of these Catholic integralists. I don't know why I'm blanking right now.
This is right. We talked about this before. Like we talked about this a couple of times. Like the whole idea of like, you know, a complete like hollowing out of the administrative state and replacing it with like a new regime that Yarvin always talks about, right? He's always like,
Rod Dreher. Like, that was who it was. He said that like Rod Dreher and Curtis Yarvin are. Oh, I get. Okay, so the 7 intellectual forces behind J.D. Vance. That it's
But
from
yeah,
Politico.
but that whole idea of like, regime change, internal regime change, that like Moldbug is always like, like slamming really hard. JD Vance has like espoused that as well.
Right. Yeah. Now that I'm looking at it, it looks like Patrick Deneen, Sohrab, Peter Thiel, Rod Dreher.
I heard that like
Curtis
Tucker,
Yarvin.
like,
They're
sort of
Claremont
prevailed
Institute.
upon Trump to pick JD Vance.
That wouldn't surprise me at all. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, all these guys are still riding together, and definitely like JD's their boy, and he's also the kind of
the fact that he was
like
on Amy Teresa's podcast is so.
I know. That's
like,
where we are now.
Yeah, I remember people like highlighting that, and it was like this person said that, and I'm like, I mean, those like I forget what it exactly was. It was something crazy, but it's like those things are awful and like definitely like absolutely repugnant and shocking to like the average American voter. But I don't even think those are the worst things you could find on Amy Teresa's timeline. Like if you really wanted to like smear JD Vance with Amy or like get him on that.
Oh yeah.
You can really like.
Well, there's several years worth
constantly
of it.
spamming like absolutely deranged stuff.
Yeah.
So.
As an Australian who like has never been to America,
yeah,
she sure loves commenting. But no, I mean, like I guess tactical credit where it's due. Calling that shit weird is a pretty punchy way of summing it up. And
I also think like his thing
it,
of mind your own damn business is like another. I don't know if he came up with that. Again, like all these people like probably have like
that feels
groups and like
well, also weird. What he started saying weird, I believe, back in like February.
Mm-hmm.
Like he's been like workshopping weird for a while. And then it just happened to hit. I think the fact that it was after
really made
JD
it sound
Vance,
like it was like an impromptu thing,
MSNBC set him right up. That was his like audition, and
they
they floated the trial balloon, and then it took off.
It was
then
weird
I think
how like everyone's
just
inviting all these different people on to be like, hey, like try out to be vice president, and like a lot of them just really left it.
They did kind of they kind of went into like reality TV mode, which people like loved and almost wanted more of like line up all the people and give them a rose, like it brought back the spectacle.
Themselves that like they used their worker power to make Kamala pick walls when probably like Josh Shapiro just annoyed her. And
covered up a murder and
about like whether he was Zionist was probably like 5th on the list of the things that exactly, the covering up of a murder. I feel like that really would have played badly. That would have actually probably been something that like stuck to him.
Right because I did look into it like when the Veep stakes were going on. I was curious. I didn't know too much about Josh Shapiro, except he's just another one of these guys. It's like a shockingly effective governor who everyone loves. Like they're really like there was definitely a faction in kind of the Democratic establishment that was like pushing him so hard. Like he was just like the greatest like politician of like the the next generation of Obama. Like he was so good. But also I think that didn't work in his favor because like it almost was like threatening to upstage Kamala's like big coming out parties. You needed, they ended up going with like the Biden approach of like an old like normie white guy who just like kind of balances things out, and not like a hotshot like prosecutor like nerd like I don't know. Like he started striking me as like so fake, and then like his like college articles about like Israel and Palestine came out and. All that other kind of stuff, and though and then like the counterattacks of like if she doesn't pick like Josh Shapiro, I'm leaving the Democrat Party because like it just shows they're so anti-Semitic. And in the midst of all that, it was curious to watch. I posted a little bit about this on Twitter, but I was noticing because I think once again, while we didn't literally predict the future, I think anybody like dunking on us for being like how ridiculous that like you thought that anybody like saying J.B. Pritzker could get close to the White House would be like a realistic thing in 2024. Like you guys need to calm down. You're not having a normal one. Well, I mean, he got to the final round of the VP.
There were some weird things where like he was like the Illinois Democrats were the only ones who didn't like immediately endorse Kamala. They kind of like went into a holding pattern for a little while. That was a bit strange.
Obama too, who is Chicago
Obama
connected.
also held
Obama
off,
didn't
yeah.
do it right
and
away.
And one thing that I noticed, again, this is like totally circumstantial, but one thing that did stick out to me, I don't know if you listened to Trump's like quote unquote interview, like really it was like a podcast with Elon Musk that he did. Like
I endured a little
episode.
bit of it.
Well,
rough.
if you maybe you noticed like that, it seemed like Trump had like some like programmed phrases about J.B. Pritzker, like more so than he had about Kamala. Like with Kamala, it was just like the stuff of like, oh, she's dumb.
Yeah,
or something like that, or like she's, she laughs, or like what, I don't know, what's her race or something like that. And I don't think he said anything about Tim Walz at all, but he had a couple of things like that were memorized about Pritzker. Like he's a real loser. They didn't even want him in the family business. Like it seemed like he had like read up like Oppo on Pritzker, like in particular.
Like I said, I think I mentioned maybe last time we recorded that the Plaza Hotel, where Trump made his cameo in Home Alone 2: Lost in New York, Trump owned that in the 90s, and I think for a while he co-owned that hotel with Hyatt, with the Pritzker family. And so by then, JB would have been like a young man getting into the family business by the 1990s. And also, Trump coming up in the 80s, like, there are both hotel families, right? I mean, that's kind of what they... Trump was more like apartment buildings and real estate, but like, Trump definitely got into the casino hotel kind of thing. So, I'm sure that, before Trump became like a MAGA guy, he was hanging out with Democrats all the time. He was hanging out with Roy Cohn, his mentor, who I haven't found like direct, ties between Roy Cohn and the Pritzkers. Of course, Roy Cohn is like super Republican, but they were swimming in very similar worlds, and they even, technically did business together for a little while. So, but at the same time, like Tom Pritzker, that Epstein BFF, JB's cousin, is like the main guy, like probably the most important in terms of the hotel side of the thing. So Trump probably does know Tom Pritzker, or has like interacted with him or done kind of business with him. And then maybe JB is kind of seen as like, because JB's dad, Don Pritzker, died of a heart attack when JB was like relatively young. So JB like didn't have like a father that was like at the head of the business the way that say like Tom Pritzker or Nick Pritzker did. So, he might have seen him as like, he probably knew some gossip from back in the day of like, yeah, they didn't want him in the family business. I mean, they did have that fight in the early 2000s over some of the heirs, divvying up the fortune. Though that was really more of a, like, the core group of Pritzkers, like Penny, JB, Tom, and Nick, were all coming together to, like, steal money from the, like, quasi, like, illegitimate, like, younger heirs. Like the girl who was in Air Force One playing Harrison Ford's, like, the first kid, basically, in the movie Air Force One, remember? Liesl Pritzker. Yeah, like I think they had they had jacked some of the inheritance with the help of their law firm, their Burt Cantor law firm, and jacked a bunch of it from like the younger kids who were like still growing up and like took more for themselves. But I don't know if like Tom or Nick tried to like, actually wait, now that I think about it, I don't know if JB ever like really worked at a high level for Hyatt, or even I think he worked for some aspects of the Marmon Group, which is like their big holding company. But I think JB and his other brother kind of went off and did their own kind of like startup business thing that like they're a little bit separate, I think, from Hyatt proper, even though he has a shitload of Hyatt money and probably stock that he inherited, right? So I guess in that sense, like maybe Trump like is launching a little broadside at him because like he didn't get like brought into like the core business, the way like that, Tom Pritzker has. I don't know, honestly. It'd be interesting to see if they had more like of a past together, like they had more run-ins in the past. But I guess he hates him, which isn't too surprising. JB, I feel like JB did not want to get picked as vice president.
Yeah,
honestly.
He didn't seem
that
to
was
try.
The vibe I got.
Yeah.
He didn't seem to try. He went on a few talk shows, but I noticed because I think I pointed this out near the end of the Veep Stakes, but I thought, isn't it interesting that like of all these candidates for VP who has like a pre-existing army of like irony accounts that have like a decent amount of followers that have been stoking the fires of this thing for the last 2 years, like something really nobody asked for, like when they started doing it. Like it was the most random shit ever. And they've persisted in the bit. I mean, some people have dropped off, but like this, like, socialists for Pritzker, like the nomadic warriors for Pritzker, like the people that made the coconutbigboy.com website, like right after Biden dropped out. It seemed like for a minute they were ready to ride hard, like harder than they've ever rode before. But then it's almost like they got like a stand down order at some point, even though his name kept popping up as like he got to basically the final 6, right? Of people, and was probably the least like seriously hyped of those final 6, but nonetheless like got to the final interview round. And I thought it was curious. It's like if he really wants to be VP, he'd be really fucking up right now by not like leveraging the big boy thing, right? And the other option, I don't know, like even if it was like a vanity thing. But I do think
there might be a similar Shapiro problem where like he as a VP, like he's such like he's a big boy, he really fills up a room, you don't want someone who's going to overshadow Kamala,
And I actually saw a lot of accounts who I presume are real people that, like, actually the most common thing I'd see if I searched for, like, Pritzker VP was a bunch of people from, like, Illinois and Chicago being like, no, she shouldn't pick him. Like, we love JB. Like, we need him too much.
Exactly.
And we need him, There was a huge chorus of that, which is, like, I don't know, interesting and weird. But that seemed to be, like, the predominant comment that I kept seeing from people was like, oh, we don't even want him to leave Illinois. He's too valuable. He's like the first like governor that, well, I'm not going to say the first non-corrupt governor in 100 years in Illinois, but the first one who probably won't go to jail in, because that is a very common result with Illinois governors, right? Like I forget if it's a majority, but like a substantial percentage of Illinois governors have ended up going to jail and doing time. Like Rod Blagojevich, who came out and was like talking shit and kind of smearing JB a little bit during those Veep stakes, which is interesting. I wonder where Blago, fits into all of this. Because, they did have that perfect FBI phone call that we played in Contra 7, where they're kind of horse trading for like Barack Obama's Senate seat, effectively. So I don't know, but with the Walz thing, I think it is interesting that, we didn't get the big boy himself, but we got a kind of candidate that like embodies a lot of the supposed attributes and like strengths of like the big boy ticket as formulated like 2 years ago by, people in current affairs and Washington Post and various podcasts, and increasingly serious tones, right? About like how he was a shockingly good governor. And, you need like a candidate who's just going to like eat a fried Twinkie at the fair. And like, he's just like a guy, you know what I mean? But of course, the chief contradiction with JB is that he's like not just a guy. He's a billionaire heir who completely self-financed his own campaign. Like he just can't be, at the end of the day, as much as he tries, like he certainly has adopted a persona of being like just a heckin' Baez fan, kind of guy.
Right.
But you need somebody with an actual bio that is like the dad next door. And so it seems like maybe what happened is like the Chicago crowd, they managed to get a Midwestern boy on the ticket, but it's like this Minnesota governor who pretty much had no kind of national profile beforehand, but can be introduced as just this fresh, normie, like chill old white guy thing that, basically can hook in all those like swing voters, in like the battleground states and the blue wall in like, in Michigan and Wisconsin, right?
Yeah.
And I think in that sense, it was kind of a savvy move because, if it was JB, you could, especially on the VP ticket, like you could blast him for being
and I
a
think
billionaire.
They are kind of like going after Trump on that front too, kind of, like his
Like he was born with a silver spoon in his mouth.
He loves strike breaking and things like that.
Right.
He praised Elon for being the biggest scab in the world. So
yeah.
I feel like that is.
And I think if JB's going to take a shot at the big leagues, he's going to have to endure like an avalanche of like pretty bad negative oppo research about his family, because there's just, as we found, there's just a lot there. There's really a lot, even with like dumbass, Republicans or whatever, using it all to prove that he's a communist or something. It's still a lot of stuff that's like weird, doesn't look good, seems hella corrupt. Like you could go down the list, like, the cannabis cartel, like there are a lot of things that like if people had a huge incentive to like dig them up about JB and about the Pritzkers, like could be annoying. Now, if he's going for the big prize, then that might ultimately be worth it. But I think as a VP riding shotgun for Kamala, and then he's not going to be in charge, he's not going to be the big boy chief, like it seemed like he didn't really want that. And so, but I think he was. Really,
there's no advantage to
happened.
it, because I don't think that being Kamala's VP would actually make him like, a more credible candidate for president. Like if she does win, if she gets 2 terms, I mean, basically if Kamala wins, no matter what, then like he's probably out for, the next 2 cycles. But if she loses, then he can come back, But either way, like I don't think it would help him, even if he does have to wait the 2 cycles. You know what I mean? Like for them to win together. Like I think he would be, just as plausible a candidate. I guess he theoretically meant to go up against Tim Walz, but how old would Tim Walz be? And does Tim Walz like want to be president?
That's
Maybe.
The thing is that Tim Walz is like Kamala's age. He just looks older. He's 59, and JB's like 58.
Pritzker. Yeah,
JB's like 58.
59.
So they would have enough. Given how old we've shifted everything now, I feel like these people think that at least that would be their last stab at not being
Tim Walz
considered
might
old.
be able to defeat Pritzker down the line too, because he kind of.
But then they'll have to worry about Josh Shapiro. There'll be a whole bunch of people. Gavin Newsom. Yeah, but Tim Walz,
so his ambitions might flame out at governor of Illinois, but yeah.
As someone in the Grotto pointed out, there's no term limit on governor in Illinois, so he has the money that he could just keep getting, like do a Mayor Daley thing and just keep getting reelected, and so he doesn't fall out of like, relevance.
Yeah, and he wouldn't be above like just like, if you truly wanted to be president, like say Kamala wins, say she wins again, like if he wanted to be president after that, then he wouldn't be above like just like pumping a ton of money to try to make it happen, and doing like underhanded stuff like to smear whoever he was running against.
But just imagine if he takes with his money and he does in the Democratic primary what he did in the Republican primaries for governor, where he picked strategically like the most kind of goofy MAGA candidate and gave them like $100 million so that they would win, and then he just sets them up and knocks them down. And he could do that with like what's the most fractious, like what are a bunch of Democratic candidates that would like split the base of people who like aren't going to vote for me?
Joe Manchin.
Like like he'll just like bankroll Joe Manchin, and then also like AOC, like maybe like not AOC, but maybe somebody who's like like a disruptor to just like but also like not attack him. Like he could kind of create a little lane for himself because he's like one of the biggest donors. But yeah, he probably wants to keep his powder dry for that big moment. And he is going to get a coming out party in, Chicago next week when the convention starts either way, right?
Yeah.
Even if he wasn't in VP contention, he's going to get a chance to show off his Windy City.
It's, we were like saying like, it is surprising how like it doesn't seem certain that Trump will win, but it's still entirely plausible that Trump will win. It's still like, I wouldn't say that it's like necessarily more likely that he'll lose than that he'll win. I feel like it's a toss-up, which is in and of itself pretty surprising.
Yeah.
But
I don't know. Just after the shooting and the switch up, he does seem a little bit like maybe he's a little fucked up in the head.
Well, it would kind of fuck you up, wouldn't it?
I mean, somebody the Secret Service, like, quote unquote, fucked up, and then a guy almost blew your head off. Like a Zoomer, like almost blew your head off for reasons that are like completely inscrutable. And the reasons why like nobody stopped him are completely inscrutable.
There's no information at all about like what his motive may have been. Like the closest thing I heard maybe is like, oh, he hated all politicians or something. And he was always talking shit about all politicians. Oh, right. People said that he looked up like campaign events for like everybody, right?
Yeah, he
and
did.
Trump
He was a
happened to be
Biden.
like coming through. Yeah, imagine.
Like what
oof,
the?
I'm
I
sorry
just
for
saw the other
laughing,
day allegedly that he would go do target practice at like a range that was used by like Department of Homeland Security or something. I don't know how. I didn't look into that further, but
I mean, it
I'm
was
getting
incredibly
big-
sus how badly they screwed up. You know, like
Right.
again, I'm not like I don't think it's outside the realm of like incompetence necessarily, but it was like sus, you know, and it was also sus. Like why didn't they like get him out of there as fast as they could? Why did they let him like stick around and like pump his fist? You know what I mean? Like what was that all about?
It all had
Like,
this
come on, guys,
bizarre,
you
like,
should be dragging him out of there.
WWF. It had like
Yeah.
a WWF quality to it, even though it's
also weird that his ear appears to be, and I'm not saying that it was like
Not-
makeup or whatever, or like,
Right,
but it does.
right.
It's weird how fine it appears to be, because like in those initial pictures, it almost seemed like it had like taken a piece of his ear off. Like it would almost have had to, right?
like a
for
little
that.
chunk, a little
Yeah,
chunk.
but
yeah.
I can't really see that in like pictures.
You think
of
he'd have
Trump
like a
now.
scar or like a red?
Yeah, maybe
or
it
like,
was kind of like maybe they tried to make it into the bullet, like, but it actually was what people had speculated, that it was like some kind of like slash with shrapnel from the podium or something like that. I don't know, but
maybe he cut himself like jumping to the ground. You know, old people on blood thinners, like they bleed pretty easily.
yeah.
It wasn't. It did seem like it was kind of coming from his ear, but like at the same time, like watching the supposed trajectory of the bullet and how if he had just like not tweaked his head at the last minute, he would have just gotten headshot. Like we'd be talking about fucking, like you said it like it'd be a perfect time if somebody wanted to do that because he hasn't announced his VP pick yet, and then like the RNC
Everyone
could pick
descend
it.
into complete chaos. Yeah, like
Yeah, and then it's so weird how picking Vance seems to have like overshadowed the fact that he did almost get his head blown off. And,
well,
like,
it was almost
there's
deliberate
not-
in a way though, because like he kind of like receded and he like let JB like just run all around. You know, like basically campaigning
JD,
for
yeah.
him. Sorry, yeah, JD. Sorry, we're talking about Pritzker so much.
JB,
Yeah, exactly. What are these people thinking that like it's cool to like call yourself JB or like JD? Like, stop it. Like, you know, just use your
I
name.
know.
But
Yeah.
especially if your initials are J, like it's kind of like, you know, what are you, 5? Like, so and JD Vance like changed his name so many times that it's weird that he settled on that. But anyway, I guess he probably thinks it sounds cool, which is
It
typical.
sounds like from the holler, kind of. You know, it was a
Yeah.
good thing for hillbillyology.
But anyway, yeah, he kind of like you know, it's weird. He kind of like took the reins on the campaign for a while, you know.
Yeah, it's kind of like the teal people are kind of like in the driver's seat, and then Trump is
Yeah.
like flailing around, just saying like really bad, like just politically bad things. Like he's really like fucking up. It almost makes me like it almost makes one think like, is he trying to lose? Like, did he get spooked out? Like, is his swag thrown off now? Like he is like, oh no, they'll kill me
I
and
think
like
his
get away
swag
with it.
may
Like,
be. I think it's
Like,
totally
they
plausible
will
that
kill
his
me.
swag is thrown off. You know, yeah.
Like, because unless you, because like that was also interesting to see the kind of the spin around of like Democrats being like, I don't like false flag. I don't believe that shit. You know what I mean? Like going kind
Yeah,
of full,
exactly.
like,
There were so many
McGowan,
people.
Boston
Yeah.
bombing on it.
Yeah.
Crisis actors.
It
Like,
was, yeah.
I mean, like, yeah, like, oh, it was blood. It was like a wrestling work. Like he did some cutting, like when he was down and stuff. But like, I'm not gonna say like things are so weird right now. I'm not gonna like scoff and be like absolutely like no way, because there are these weird theatrical elements to it that are like on the Trump end. But also, I keep seeing reports that make it seem like he kind of hates that picture that was taken of him, and he like hates being reminded of it, and he's like actually traumatized. Like he's like, you know,
yeah,
he's Trump.
the
He
way
can't
they
admit
played it
He can't go to a
since, like,
therapist.
kind of
Like,
definitely cast doubt on any kind of like false flag. And I was always kind of like, yeah, I mean, maybe they're like, maybe there was someone like behind it in some way, you know, who like activated this guy.
A
you
plot
know, but
is different than a false flag.
Yeah.
Like the idea that the bullet didn't almost take his fucking head off. Like I'm leaning towards. Like, I feel like maybe we, in the event that this is true, like, we have to reckon with the fact that a bullet almost, like, took his fucking head off. Like, and then that, by a weird fucking fluke, like, his head was not blown off. And so many things had to be sort of set up to even, like, get close to that. But I think that's, like, very close to success. I mean, a bullet whizzed by and clipped his ear.
There would have to be a
and he
lot
would
of
have been
moving
done.
parts if like the bullet didn't actually obviously it wasn't like this amazing marksman who's like aiming for his ear and it's like okay, you can just make that shot.
Right.
It's like
Like,
not
it's not like the Don
how it
DeLillo
would
Libra,
be.
like we're just gonna
so it's
scare
like,
him.
oh
Like,
yeah, like shoot a bunch of people in the crowd so it seems like you missed, like aim for them, but Trump's gonna duck down and pretend you hit his ear. Like I don't know if that is that really comes together. But
this guy is
yeah.
the shooter's vibes are like the guy in the beginning of Cobra who like goes into the supermarket and it's like, I'm a hero of the new world, and just starts like randomly blasting people. Like this is I can't see, unless he was like a fucking Navy SEAL sniper, to be like, I'm gonna nick his ear.
No one.
Like,
There's no.
they were,
like
he
I
was
think we
shooting
could
to
throw
kill.
out the possibility that he was aiming for the ear as part of like some theatrical thing, right? Like
No. Like unless he was shooting like BBs at him or something like that. But then why did he kill like 2 people? Like it was
I guess there's
was
like a lot of
definitely-
theories that people have. Like a lot of people talk about like a second shooter. So maybe the second shooter like shot the people to create like the illusion that I don't know. That guy was not firing like BBs or whatever when he actually was.
But I don't even know if the
and-
range. I don't think BBs would go that far. Like that's enough for like
true.
an AR-15.
Well, again,
but
yeah,
it wasn't
I
that
haven't
far
like
for an AR. but-
zaprudered the whole situation, but yeah, it. And I think that one thing, like they did not leverage it well, but yeah, I mean, I don't know if it were like more than like just like this one guy like doing it because he wanted to kill like a politician of some kind, and Trump happened to be in the area. Like I guess it could have been the Democrats, like could have tried to do it to, like prevent Biden from losing to Trump or something. I guess that would be one theory. Right? Like,
and then after he survived, they're like, all right, I guess we have to get rid of Biden.
Yeah.
Like they really, I mean, what if Biden did it? Like specifically Biden, you know what I mean? Like Biden made the call and he's like, activate one of the MK shooters. Like I need a favor, and he got some like ex-CIA company to like do it for him. And then, they bumbled it. And then, then that's when Nancy had to come in and be like, Joe, like, it's gone too far.
You
like,
really blew it.
You gotta retire.
Yeah.
You can't even assassinate Trump. Like, you had one shot, and it's all purely hypothetical. But I guess that could be a kind of, because I don't know, I feel like the Democrats now are so confident that I don't feel like, between Kamala and Pelosi and Obama, I feel like they don't need to
it's
resort
really
to
a
such
roller
measures to beat
coaster
him
ride.
now.
Like it was funny. Like after Trump, like it happened. I remember Trump like called up RFK Jr. or had that sort of like leaked, like
Yeah.
Again, by leaked, I mean like they leak. It's not like some hacker got it or whatever. Like he obviously
like RFK
released it,
just
right?
said
Yeah,
it.
right.
Yeah.
That phone call he had with Trump, where Trump was talking about having RFK like in his administration or something, his Surgeon General. I don't know, but yeah, he was like, Biden called me and he's very nice, and he was just like, how'd you know to move your head? And like the way he said it made it sound like he was disappointed or something. Like how did you know to move your head? Like, it was kind of a comical thing, but. But other than that, the other thought that I had in terms of, and again, like, it could easily just be like that. Yeah, there's definitely like people who are ambiently MK'd by the American society and the internet and things like that, and just like want to kill someone for attention or for whatever.
Right, he was watching those Elsagate videos.
Yeah, exactly. That's entirely possible. But if there were some kind of like hidden hand, another thought that I had, just kind of speculating this as like a parlor game, would be I did wonder, like, the timing was a little bit off. That makes this a bit not quite have the sort of appeal that it might otherwise. But it'd be interesting if like it were kind of like the JD Vance like Teal people, like who they thought like, oh, maybe there was something like in the like where Trump is like assigned this thing, or like he's
we will celebrate
put
him
in,
as a martyr.
Exactly, we officially put in like JD Vance is like once like Trump gets shot and they're like Trump had his last act was to select JD Vance as his successor, or something like that.
It's like in the DPRK when we went to the DMZ and the person was like, they were talking about the day that Kim Il-sung like died of a heart attack on the train, and they were like, he was writing a document that was like the final draft of like reunification because he was working so hard because all he cared about was reunification, and then finally like his heart gave out, like no. But they could, I'm sure that was true, but they could concoct a fake version for Trump that like his last will and testament was that JD take his place. And
I mean, it's like, and obviously that had been in the works for a while, so it wouldn't be that much of a reach, like there obviously it had been some time since they picked JD Vance because they announced him like 2 days after, right? Something like that.
Yeah, it was pretty quick. And I know that I'd read that like Thiel had conversations with him, and I think some other like Silicon Valley people maybe as well. Like, like Bill Ackman came around and endorsed Trump, Elon, of course. So this like kind of younger Gen X crowd of like tech psychos were definitely having meetings with Trump and probably nudging him in that direction, because there wasn't any other candidate that was remotely as much of a Thielite as JD Vance. Like Doug Burgum was like kind of a tech entrepreneur guy from either North or South Dakota, but like very normie kind of vibes. And then who else? Like Marco Rubio. Are you kidding me? No, he's never going to pick him. So it did seem kind of like all the cards, everything had been lined up just so that JD almost seemed like an inevitability. And I mean, now it is true. It's weird how JD has been, pretty much going on a solo tour, like since the convention, and is kind of doing his own vibe. And then Trump is like hiding at Mar-a-Lago and I don't know, and seemingly self-sabotaging himself. So I don't know. I think things could even change, if this takes a week to put out. Things could be different by next week.
Yeah.
There'll probably be, if this might be the final lap of Harris-Walz, because I think we're about to return to our Palestine series soon. I think apropos for the fall when the students are coming back to campus. And there's going to be this like intriguing question of what is Mamala going to do in regards to Israel and Palestine. I think we're already seeing a very delicate dance being kind of performed.
Yeah.
Of like, give a wink, wink. Like, it is kind of like this QAnon, like, trust the plan, like, thing with Kamala, where it's like, she can't say it, but like, she's already setting up the military tribunals for Bibi, and like, she's gonna send him to Guantanamo Bay, and he'll be hanged by the neck until dead.
Yeah.
For his crimes against the Gazan people, and then like, they're gonna have a 2-state solution in no time and stuff. And it's like, well, I don't like. That's not exactly her track record on her career. And same with Tim Walz, who's been like, photographed with Netanyahu before and is like a pretty standardly like pro-Zionist, guy when he was in Congress. But of course, I think maybe we mentioned at the beginning of Contra 8, the power blocks of people like the Pritzkers and things like the JAC in Chicago. I think what we saw maybe during the Veep stakes was a little bit of like, some fault lines in like the broader Democratic coalition between kind of hyper like pro-Zionist people. A lot of like Wall Street people on the East Coast are kind of like of that vibe versus maybe like the Chicago like liberal Zionist crowd that I think the Pritzkers kind of personify. Like, you saw the proxy war at Harvard over Claudine Gay, and how Penny Pritzker was, like, backing her up while, like, Bill Ackman and all these other people were threatening to pull money because, like, she said it was, like, okay to genocide Jewish students, and stuff.
Yeah.
And all that whole controversy. So, I think you saw a little bit of that there. I think you might have even seen it in, like, the proxy war in the Veep stakes between Walz and Shapiro. That, like, Shapiro represented that East Coast kind of faction, whereas, like, Walz is, like, definitely still like pro-Zionist, and like he'll probably like go along with whatever the overall policy. He's certainly not going to make any brave different kind of stand, but if there are factions within the national security community or the intelligence services that kind of like the Iraq war, like it's not, we shouldn't get too excited. They're not going to spontaneously stop being imperialist, but maybe they have a different kind of a philosophy about how to handle this whole situation, or maybe they think things are threatening to kind of spiral out of control in this like Antony Blinken kind of era of like confrontation.
He needs to be take him out of there. He's
get
a real
that
piece of
sus
shit.
Samuel Pizar stepson out there.
Yeah.
Hopefully,
Well,
yeah.
like again, I don't have high hopes. I won't be voting for either of these fools. You know, like
Me neither.
I mean Trump or Kamala. Again, my
Right,
state's going to go
right.
blue. If you live in a swing state, I don't like I don't fault you if you want to take the chance and vote for Kamala, because I do think that. It's like the thing about Trump is that like once Trump gets in, he's going to probably be like even worse on Gaza and on Palestine in general than Biden, even though Biden has like this bizarre, like conspicuous love for Israel, which like has just really like completely sunk his legacy and like his entire presidency, really. But
Trump's
yeah,
even
like I
more
think
personally tied into it with the Kushners and everything.
Yeah, Trump will definitely or like he'll at least be as bad. The only thing is like maybe like, when he is all in on Palestine, then like the libs will like suddenly wake up and realize that because Trump is doing it, it's bad. That's the only like calculus that like has any kind of like argument to it, although it is like a bit weak and roundabout. So I don't fault you if you want to take a chance on like voting for these people to defeat Trump and see if they'll be any better than Biden. But I also wouldn't hold your breath, and like someone needs to send a message to these people, like because Kamala in particular, she was VP. Like, I know they had her send some signals, but in a way that's kind of just like laundering what Biden was doing. So it's like, they're kind of complicit in like this atrocity. So like someone needs to say like, nah, like
to get like the job of, you could almost say she ended up being a little bit lucky with some parts of the Democratic base, and that she, one of her many thankless tasks that she was sort of given as VP was to maybe like do those kind of very vague signals, like not going to the Netanyahu speech at Congress or something, or, like mentioning like vague comments about like, we're very concerned about the humanitarian crisis, etc. And whereas, then Biden could be kind of like bad cop, like, and go out there and be really forceful. But I think actually that might so now that's maybe contributed to this perception that secretly like she's all about it, and we'll see. I definitely do not have my hopes up. I do believe that like people kind of pressuring her like in public at her rallies and like not letting it just slide by, I think is a good move to make, like regardless of what happens, right? If nothing else, you can sort of discipline, public politicians and let them know that like you're not going to vote for somebody who's like a sort of like a softer, fluffier, like pro-Zionist, like pro-genocide candidate, right? And
it's hard to imagine that like as a black woman, like she would like be as indifferent to the death of Arabs, like, and basically like kind of a heavily, racially coded genocide, like kind of happening like under her auspices. But again, you'd think that, but as experience has shown, it's not necessarily true at all. And I guess she's also a Tamil Brahmin, right? So
she is a Brahmin, which not always the strongest friends of the Palestinian cause. Unfortunately,
I wonder.
Though very
like,
international. I think her
wonder,
grandfather.
Yeah,
she actually comes from a kind of like a somewhat notable like political family in India. I think it's either her grandfather or her great uncle or her great grandfather. I think was like a local politician in like the Raj. Like he was something like a regional governor or something like that. But she's definitely a Brahmin and was primarily raised by her mother. I actually didn't know this. She was a lot of her childhood. She was raised in Montreal because her mom, I think, was either getting a PhD or got a research job, like an academia job there. So kind of actually like Obama, like Pete Buttigieg, has like this strange kind of like child of like lefty academic kind of bio, but then becomes like a centrist Gen Xer Democrat, like kind of life arc, which is interesting. But so yeah,
it's
and also
crazy how like Donald J. Harris is like in with like Ron Karenga and all those people too. Like we were mentioning.
Yeah, I'd love to know more about Donald Harris.
Yeah, and
like at first glance when you read about him, he seems kind of like maybe like based because they're like, oh, he's like a Marxist economist at Stanford. But also I did hear that I think who one of his students was at Stanford.
Who?
Peter Thiel.
Oh, really? Interesting.
I mean, among other people,
that doesn't
too.
necessarily mean anything.
It
but,
doesn't really mean anything. I'm
about
sure,
him,
like, if he was preaching Marxist economics,
he
I'm sure
did
Peter
meet
Thiel hated it.
Kamala Harris's mother at a meeting of the Afro-American Association, which would eventually propose the holiday of Kwanzaa. But I guess also would help establish
wait
the
a
Black
minute,
Panther
really?
Party.
Well,
I guess they
we
also
talked
helped
about Ron
establish the
Karenga.
Black Panther Party, so that's
Okay.
something. But yeah, the Los
Okay,
Angeles
yeah.
chapter was chaired by Maulana Karenga, who we mentioned, right?
Ron
So,
Karenga, the police informant, right?
Yes.
We've discussed this before. Yeah. That Kwanzaa, like I think he invented Kwanzaa like after he was already like a police informant. I forget if he was an FBI informant as well. But yeah, I forgot which episode where we talked about
Her
Ron
mom
Karenga.
was a gifted singer of Carnatic music. That's interesting.
Interesting.
Yeah, she played
Yeah,
tambura or something.
but yeah, I'm surprised actually people haven't like ripped her for like growing up in Montreal more. Seems like an easy. I guess when you have San Francisco as a stand-in for everything evil, you don't need to like bring Montreal into it.
No, yeah,
kind of thing. But yeah, we'll see which way the wind blows this ticket.
Yeah,
I don't know. Also, her husband Doug Emhoff, very kind of powerful entertainment lawyer guy. And while he certainly seems to go along with like being pretty liberal and things like that, I did find some video of him from like, I don't know how many years ago it was, but he was speaking at like a Chabad Lubavitch like event. So like he definitely has, I think, those like political ties to kind of pretty right wing like Zionist movements. Now, I think if that was super determinative, then I'd be a little more like worried about that if she had picked Josh Shapiro, who seems like very similar to Doug Emhoff, like a hotshot lawyer. I guess it did drop. I was actually amazed at how much like this didn't get reported on, but apparently it was like revealed that like Doug Emhoff, like he got divorced from his first wife because he started having an affair with their babysitter, with their kid's babysitter. And there was also like a lot of rumors that like he got the babysitter pregnant. And this article I read was like very vague about like what happened to the baby. I couldn't tell if they were implying that like she had an abortion or if she like gave it up for adoption or if she's like, I guess she doesn't have a kid now. So like, it's not like she doesn't like have the kids, but it was like very mysterious.
But on the other hand, isn't their stepdaughter like kind of a pro-Palestine like kind of?
Yes, the model and influencer Ella Emhoff has she has posted pro-Palestine stuff on like social media because she has like a fairly big following, but she also has just like started posting like pro-Harris walls. Like she's sort of jumped in as like a campaign surrogate for Mamala. So we'll see. I mean, that was another thing is like if she's got like stepchildren that are like kind of super woke, like Zoomers who like, I think also Ella, at least one of the two children, because their mom was like Swedish, like they sort of explicitly like don't self-identify as Jewish, even though their
That
dad's
is
Jewish.
interesting. Yeah, that says a lot, honestly. Like it's kind of, although I guess, was her mother Jewish? Oh no, Kirsten Emhoff was,
No, she was Swedish.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, so I guess that.
Yeah. So Doug Emhoff, I mean, married two Shixes, so maybe he's not, maybe he's not that attached. But I do think the Chabad Lubavitcher event thing is a little bit like interesting. Like, what's this like big shot, like LA big law firm entertainment lawyer guy like hanging out with the Rebbe's like crowd, who are very, very, these are like the anti-vax like. Right? Like, I mean, there's a whole bunch of reasons you could go down of like, but then again, so does Cory Booker. Like, Cory Booker loves the Rebbe. Like, so many of these people are hanging out with Rabbi Shmuley.
I mean, like within like Jewish organizations and institutions in general, like the Chabad are like pretty influential. Like they set up like a lot of stuff.
That's true. Yeah.
Especially like in the United States. So it's kind of like it's not like any like it's not much weirder than being involved.
Specific
like,
endorsement.
It's not like a specific endorsement of anything really. Like there's a lot of like Chabad organizations. They're like a really politically involved movement like ever since the beginning, ever since the original Rebbe.
Right. So, they've been very very like good relationships with the Democrats, which is like not exactly.
I mean, like
what
again,
you would
like that's the thing. Like a lot of like we talked about before, like the anti-Zionist movement in the United States is like probably disproportionately Jewish. because
yeah.
I think that obviously Jewish people can be more liable to get like really taken in and like, enter into this like persecution complex situation where like everything is like out, closing in on them, and like somehow like if you don't exterminate all Palestinians, like you as like a well-off person in the United States like are in danger or something. There's plenty of people like
your
that.
suburb in New
but there's
Jersey
also a
is
lot
gonna
of
get
people who
invaded.
like kind of see through the haze because like, wait a minute, like I'm not like living in like a hell of like anti-Semitic oppression or whatever, where I feel like I need like all these people to die so that like I will be quote unquote safe or whatever
Right.
the line is. So I think it can kind of go either way. Like I mean like Bernie like sucks, but as Democrats go, he's like better than a lot of them.
And there's a lot of like
you know.
non-Jewish Democrats. Like I forget if Fetterman's Jewish, honestly, or if he's just a big German boy. But like, I mean, there are definitely non-Jewish
I feel like
Democrats
he's
that are
not.
just like. I mean, Biden, who's like, I'm an Irish Catholic Zionist.
He literally proclaimed himself a Zionist, which like
Yeah. So that's true too. Like the term Zionist is not like mutually tied to like being Jewish, right? But I think our listeners know that. Yeah. So
I hope
it'll
our
be
listen's know
weird.
that. I mean, apparently
hope
there
so.
are some who like kind of obfuscate the issue out there in the discourse these days. But it's kind of
we have a lot of 1-star reviews on Apple that are like biased, as their name implies, and like like I knew what these guys were all about. Like they're clearly all about like the Palestine episodes, and like there's like a few listeners that are just like very mad about like how we covered it and just biased. Okay. Whatever. We didn't like worship Theodore Herzl. Sorry. So I don't know. I guess
we said genocide is bad. What
we
a
said
bias.
genocide's
Yeah.
bad. I know. Disgusting. So yeah, I mean, I think we'll probably check in. Maybe through this election cycle. I mean, we're not going to go. We're not going to whip out the interactive map and maybe go full wonk mode. But there is a lot happening very fast. So I think there's value in like checking in. Maybe at the
Certainly
top of
over the
these
last couple
episodes.
of weeks, like a ton has happened. It's crazy, like how much everything sort of shifted.
Yeah, and it's it could shift more. It could shift.
Certainly
more.
could. Yeah, you never know.
Yeah, we're still waiting on maybe by the time this comes out, like will Iran respond to the assassination attacks that Israel did? Is there going to be a regional war popping off? Ukraine is doing weird shit.
It seems like
Russia
Iran
right now.
sadly lacks escalation dominance against Israel, and they've like threatened a lot of things in the past, and like nothing has quite materialized. I mean, this was this recent thing. It
was almost 2 weeks ago.
Sinwar, it's pretty egregious. So maybe this will provoke more, but I don't know. I'm again something where I'm not necessarily holding my breath because Iran's response has been underwhelming in the past. They've like certainly done more than a lot of Muslim leaders, which is
true.
Not saying much, but at least they've lent their rhetoric and other things. There's been some material support as well, but. I think the thing is they lack the escalation dominance over Israel. I guess they don't have like the spy infiltration into Israel to like, I don't know, what the proportional thing would be, like kill Anthony Blinken or something. I guess the proportional response would be to like kill a diplomatic guest, a military diplomatic guest of Israel in Israel.
In your house. Yeah. Like that would
so
be
who
equal.
would that be? It would have to be,
That's
but again,
true. I guess we haven't
I don't
thought
support
of so much.
that at all.
No,
that is
no,
simply, a thought experiment about what would be a proportional response to what happened from the point of view of
Iran.
Of Iran.
And we'll see. I've seen a lot of people claim that, if like you just fire enough rockets at Israel, like between Hezbollah and Iran, like they could do that for a week, just like nonstop, and eventually they will run out of like Iron Dome rockets, and then blah blah blah. But then like, what's Israel going to do? Like, do they have a reliable intelligence? Israel's not going to shoot a nuke at Iran if they feel like they're truly getting fucked, like in a sense it could be dangerous.
I don't think there's any way they
like,
could have reliable intelligence about that. Like,
You're
I don't
right,
think there's no
yeah.
intelligence that would be like reliable enough to like prove that negative, like
'cause honestly, I can't say for sure if there's like not crazy motherfuckers like in the leadership that would at least have that on the table as like an option, you know.
Yeah, I think they're definitely ready to everything. I think that they're
ready to everything.
Israel is ready to everything.
So once again, we'll see.
Rough.
It'll probably, depending on what happens, it could heighten the contradictions in this campaign, and you know they'd have to talk about it more and in more specifics. So
keep boycotting everything.
Yeah.
You know, don't let this issue die. Can keep talking about it. You know, don't, lose interest because you're, dazzled by the brat energy of
coconut
Kamala
pill,
Harris.
blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, don't get coconut pilled. Don't let the coconut fall out of the tree, hit you on the head, and make you forget about the genocide of Palestinians. Yeah, exactly. The context of all in which you live, which is America basically perpetrating a genocide against people. So.
So, I mean, we're not going to let it die this fall, and I think we're going to try to keep it top of mind in the final months of the election. And also, like I said, our student compañeros are going to be going back to class if maybe in a week or two by the end of August. And, I think a lot of people might have tricked themselves into thinking that the protest thing died down, but like I mentioned before, like the Achilles heel of student encampments and protests is like everybody goes home in the summertime, right?
Yeah.
And during like the end of the year holiday, but school is back in session now. So I think that is, despite the best efforts of the Democrats to kind of like tamp it down and be like wink, wink, like just trust the plan, like and vote for us. Just be excited, and then like we'll totally change it. I think I think a lot of the students are gonna, hold their feet to the fire and not be satisfied with just like the vague posting.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I highly encourage them to not be satisfied with that.
Don't be satisfied. Keep up the pressure. Absolutely. Don't let people scare you out of it by saying that you're helping Trump win.
Don't do that either. Like, say that she needs
on.
to have a different policy than Trump if you want.
Exactly.
Or to be treated different than Trump. Like, then she can't have the same Zionist policy that he has, right?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of ways to parry that, but do not be bullied by the the K-Hive that's going to be out in force, like calling you problematic.
The K-Hive is truly ascended. Who would have thought? They
were the original harassment meme army in a way. They were the most vicious. It didn't work. I mean, it didn't. It was like maybe a trial run.
Her campaign was a real failure the first time.
Yeah, it was.
You can't really overstate how much of a failure it was.
But she didn't have a clear lane because she was trying to drive in between Bernie Sanders and then like the centrists. Like she was trying to
that's true.
Split the difference between the two. So none of the Bernie people thought she was like epic enough, or like supported single payer enough. But then like the centrists still kind of saw her as like too much of a lefty San Francisco like radical.
Yeah, and she went after Biden over the busing thing and said that little girl was me.
She shamed him. Yeah, exactly. She shamed him and all that stuff.
But then just said it was a debate.
And then epic, patriotic, totally socialist hero Tulsi Gabbard destroyed her.
Yeah.
In one of those debates, which is interesting.
I saw when she became the nominee. I saw that clip going around again. What a
another
time warp
teal,
that is.
another kind of like I would venture to guess like somewhat teal adjacent
I'm sure
political
now
figure.
like she's like deep in the teal swamp. Like at this point,
She's just
like she's been in like the teal quicksand for a while, like slowly sinking deeper and deeper in there. I think the turning point was when she I guess she at this point repudiated the Democratic Party, right? And she
she formally left and became an independent,
right? Yeah,
and then hosted Tucker, for a week. And is grifting, but also is still a reserve PSYOP officer, going around.
Awesome.
And it's a long way from a few years ago, just hanging out with Jackson Hinkle, America's greatest communist. It's been a while. It's been a long, strange trip for Tulsi.
She spoke at CPAC in 2024. Did you know that?
Oh yeah. No, she's on Fox News and on Tucker now, all the time. She's done the Greenwald flip basically, and strangely gave up her Congress seat. I don't know why. Maybe because she wanted to switch parties, and that's just a blue state. But I'd still be great to do a Tulsi deep dive.
We never got around to it from the very, very beginning.
Oh yeah,
and we never did our Tulsi episode.
Hare Krishna.
Yeah.
Now I'm even
Chris
blanking on her
Gilbert,
fucking
right.
sus guru, her white guy guru. Oh my
Yeah.
God. Yeah. But Jesus, yeah, that there was a lot there, basically. So yeah, Tulsi, who knows? But yeah, it's going to be surprisingly. I thought this was going to be the most boring, depressing election, and now it's like very dynamic, depressing election.
I think that's part of the reason for like the enthusiasm around Kamala. Like you don't underestimate like how much people were just excited that like, oh, it's like new and shiny. Like
yeah,
that's the
fun
thing.
spectacle,
Like oh, like
new
before
season.
everything. Yeah, exactly. It's a new season. Yeah, that's I think
It, that
people,
they're-
a lot of people
I've seen
operate at
people
that
make
level,
the
to be
comment
honest.
that it's ironic that Kamala is actually like the closest parallel to the vibe of her campaign is Reagan's like Morning in America, like in 1984, like Morning in America campaign, you know, and it's kind of is like it's Morning in America. Like
Yeah.
Kamala is here, like the girl boss. She gets
Mm-hmm.
you. She is Brad, you know, and you could just like do ketamine and like not think about all the problems in the world and just vibe out, you know. That's there is a and also for the California connection, right? You always gotta
Yeah.
have that sunny Californian come in and just make it all okay. So yeah,
Lotus for POTUS, as they
Lotus
say.
for bonus.
Right.
Oh god,
That was like one
yeah.
of their failed slogans that didn't quite stick. I think there was maybe too much going on in that one. You know, like it required too much
Right.
extra knowledge. Like,
Yeah. No, absolutely. Should we jump over to these Q&A questions?
yeah, let me just get.
Okay, yeah, I'm gonna get a little more coffee too. from 2022.
Wow.
Which, we're making our way through. It has been a couple of months, but maybe we'll knock out a bunch of these today. And, I feel like we had a good pace on our call-in special episode.
Fairly good. I mean, that also was much longer than not much longer than we usually record for. But,
right, yeah. It was like 6 hours.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I will read the first one. This is from Ben, smiley face, on February 24th, 2022. They ask, I've been wondering if you guys have any thoughts on the potential susness of Lady Gaga, particularly her pivot over the last few years from her freaky countercultural persona to being involved with the Biden campaign and inauguration, and, to a lesser extent, her sudden breakthrough as a Hollywood actress. Her shift in personality has been giving me major MK vibes. Some of her recent behavior in interviews and social media, etc., have also just been generally strange. And then they post this video from Twitter, and they say, in this interview, she talks about how she had her personality altered for the House of Gucci movie by repressing her own identity and living as the alter ego of her character. And then, did you watch this video?
I didn't watch it because I couldn't open it.
If you copy and paste the URL into your browser,
right, I got it now.
Should play. Yeah, it should play.
Oh yeah, I watched this a while ago. Maybe the first time.
Right. This is where she talks about being a witch and metaphorically.
Yes.
Selma Hayek's facial expressions in this video are hilarious, though.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Everything else.
I put it in a cauldron like a witch. I mean,
everything else that's not Patricia has to go.
Right. Some people I guess make an effort to avoid witch metaphors, but some people just love them. So you gotta kind of take that out of the equation. Maybe, I don't know. Some people I think Lady Gaga probably loves witch metaphors.
Yeah. I mean, how familiar are you with Lady Gaga? I feel like maybe she's come up a little bit before.
She was famous, I feel like I remember her coming up, not necessarily on the show. If we have talked about her on the show before, we talked about some kind of theory that she took the soul of someone who died, something like that, something, some kind of sacrifice for fame, or
this
she took
Russian
over
girl.
Persona. God,
why
something like that. You can go
on
find the old episode. Someone had, or it was a pre-existing theory, I think, but I had not heard of that one before. But yeah, so she's definitely come
Lena
on the show,
Morgana. That was it. Lena Morgana, who I guess fell off of a roof, and then her mother said some things that were kind of vague, and people kind of ran with it and thought that Lady Gaga, I guess, was Lady Gaga kind of friends with her. They had maybe the same manager for a while. I think that's what it was in the 2000s. And she had a couple tracks that I remember My Angel. It was a really sad song. Mm-hmm. But then she tragically died right around the time that then Lady Gaga, I guess, switched up her style and kind of came out and then had the Just Dance album. And I mean, we've been aware of Lady Gaga for a very long time, I think we can say. I don't think we've ever
been aware of Lady Gaga for sure.
Well, I mean, Lady Gaga, I don't think we ever said this, but now that we doxed ourselves where we went to college, I remember hearing about her before she was famous because she went to the same college, and then technically we did not go at the same time because she was I think she was a year older than me, and she dropped out after her sophomore year. So
I remember hearing that she had been a dropout, but I didn't hear about her, before her fame, really.
I think
it was after
somebody.
She was famous, people were talking about
I remember
that.
somebody
but it was
showing
early
me
on in her fame.
2008 maybe. This is early 2008 when, but she had been kind of around on the kind of club circuit, and I remember the first time. Somebody showed me the Just Dance video, and I was like, huh, okay. And they were like, oh yeah, this is a girl. It's she was an NYU girl, and then she dropped down, blah, blah, blah. And then somebody immediately showed a video of her playing at one of those McDougal Street, West Village, fucking Bob Dylan pay to play, kind of places that young people often would do gigs at, or maybe it was the Lower East Side or whatever. But she was wearing almost John Fogerty or Alanis Morissette kind of outfit. She had black, straight black hair, and was just wearing a flannel shirt and jeans, and playing kind of singer-songwriter type stuff on a piano. So I remember from my very first introduction to Lady Gaga that it was clear that she like switched up her style at some point, right? Like from when she was like a freshman in college to like maybe 3 years later when she recorded her first album and kind of started to blow up. She switched to this more like very kind of queer, like gay leaning, like club thing. And I think she spent a lot of time at those kind of what would today be called indie sleaze venues on the Lower East Side. A lot of those like venues and clubs that were kind of big back then. And it did seem like from the very right out of the gate, she sort of had like the support of the gay, like she had won like the endorsement of the gays, like basically through her style, even though she's always been like pretty like maybe performatively bi, but like pretty straight overall. But like she still gives
whole,
off
like,
that
rumor about her having a penis, right? That
she,
the
like, trans she was a trans woman basically. God, I forget when that rumor was like kind of flared up and was the biggest.
Well, there's that interview with
Anderson
Cooper where she like famously like shoots down the legitimacy of the question or whatever. She's like, my fans don't care, neither do I, or whatever.
Right,
and it's like
right.
in all those compilations of like celebrities owning interviewers who ask inappropriate questions, and also like Hassan in that compilation of him, Hassan Nabi, famous streamer guy.
Epic,
in that compilation of his like old program on like the Young Turks Network or whatever, wherever he used to do it, where he was like kind of an alpha male character.
Yeah, like
one of the things he mentions is like Lady Gaga has a penis and that's like like whatever. It's like some kind of like stupid bit that he does. It's like
no, he's woke, he's an ally, he's perfect. No, that's totally what the content would have been back in like 2012. Like,
well, like something like that. I don't remember exactly his words, but it's something like that. Like, he says something like, "She would be babe of the week, but like she might have a dick or whatever." And
oh my god,
that's scary. Or, I don't know, but
yep,
yeah, right. Some kind of stupid,
sounds
like
right.
But anyway, yeah. So I guess the conspiracy theory around Lena Morgana is that they both were Rob Fusari's sort of proteges, right? Who was like a music producer who like produced Gaga's first album, I guess. And like in later years, she's been like really critical of him as like predatory. Yeah, like she kind of Me Too'd him. I don't think she ever said him, but it kind of like, it wasn't, people put it together that she was referring to him.
Yeah,
and,
I do kind of remember
like,
this happening.
I guess threatened her, like he, wanted to like burn all of her music. Rolling Stone magazine described him as her Svengali, which I guess also kind of goes with the whole like sort of MK alter metaphor that we have here. Yeah. So I guess another one of his clients was Lena Morgana, and I guess she, like, some of the songs that Gaga sang, like she also has like recordings of. So there's some theory. It was like a kind of a cult-based theory that there was some kind of like transference or something of like one's talent or something, or one's identity to the other. That's vaguely how I remember it. But that aside,
sorry, what did you remember as
the
transference thing?
Like that somehow like one's like personality or talent has been transferred to the other through some kind of like, I don't know, ritual. That's what I remember the idea being.
Oh, yeah. Well, this has popped up with a number of celebrities. I remember in the early 2010s, like in a kind of Vigilant Citizen kind of way.
Right.
It was
this is all very Vigilant Citizen like content.
Right. Yeah. Like Lady Gaga is like core Vigilant Citizen content. She gave that dude so much like content over the years,
Right. Yeah.
But the common thing was around the early 2010s, there seemed to be kind of like this trend, you could call it, of the biggest female pop stars all having like a quote unquote alter ego that they would talk about
Sasha
in interviews.
Fierce
like
was
Sasha Fierce is Beyonce. Roman Zelensky was Nicki Minaj's, which was just so bizarre.
That was so stupid.
I remember she did
really
like
lazy one. That's really
like a VMA performance, like dressed up as like a pope, but like satanic, like a satanically possessed pope. And it was just like, what's going on here?
Yeah.
Like, and then also like, I forget if Lady Gaga itself is kind of like a name,
Lady
but
Gaga definitely like leaned into the whole kind of. There's like a little bit of meta commentary going on in Lady Gaga, right? Because it's kind of like, this is like it's kind of like a like meta, like empty pop music or something, where it's kind of like quote unquote like subversive of how pop music is like so shallow, and like like when you're like repeating these nonsense phrases or whatever, it's like but you're actually thinking about how how pop music makes us repeat these nonsense phrases or something.
Exactly.
Yeah, there's always like a little bit of like
exactly.
theatricality or like meta commentary to Lady Gaga, as I recall.
There always
Yeah,
was,
like, but,
which
I mean-
people really like, a Bowie-esque kind of thing of like doing it as performance art kind of
Yeah.
thing, like a self-aware. Yeah.
Which I think is like an important like sensitivity to have when you're like trying to like navigate, like looking for like MK vibes, or especially like when you get into the vigilant citizen miasma of all this stuff. It's kind of like,
Right.
you know, this is kind of like the Marina Abramovich thing, you know, like there's definitely like a, you know, respect in which like one can talk about this like in a broader kind of sense, but also like one needs to kind of like, I think also appreciate that, like when someone talks about like, for instance, what she was saying in that video where she's like, oh, you know, I needed to purge myself of everything that wasn't useful to Patricia, you know, like acting, like that's how it is, you know, like that's like actors
that's,
like take it very seriously and like they
Yeah.
do this type of like thing like very intensely. You know,
to
so
be
that's
to be
like,
specific, that's one like not uncommon approach to acting. Not all actors do that, but you know, that's method acting, right? Is
yes,
and there's different
a lot
levels
of
it,
actors
but-
like are weird and have to kind and like, you know, and acting, you know, a lot of the time like the way that people approach acting is quite, whether it's, you know, the kind of that method, you know, that kind of intense sort of like always in character method, you know, but I don't even know what the terminology is, because it's not really Stanislavski's method, even though I feel like that's where the term
I forget
comes from.
I forget who coined the method that like Brando and then later like Daniel Day-Lewis, Jared Leto, infamously, people like that, where they live like, I don't know if it's just when they're on set or like 24/7. I think some have done it both ways, but like they are in the character. Like I think. Like one famous story of that, it's kind of illustrative.
Yeah,
I forget if we brought it up before. Was
Stanislavski's like,
Okay.
like this, but that's not really what the Stanislavski method is, where you're always in character. That's not like what he was really getting
Right.
at all. Like
Yeah,
it's like
yeah.
emotional. So it's like it's kind of like become this weird
yeah.
term.
Then there's
Yeah, I think.
Meisner. There's a few different like
Meisner is like interesting. Yeah. There's a bunch of different ones. Practical aesthetics, which is like this sort of David Mamet school that they use. But all of those like kind of are like have weird elements to them, you know, or like so they have like an underlying like philosophy, you know,
Right.
that has like kind of a spiritual element, or like is in some way like a theory of like representation in the human personality and like truth and like deceit, and like deals with these like, you know, because again, it's like something that like touches like core aspects of like human life, you know, trying to like perform, especially at the level that like people like this like do it, you know, they think about it like kind of deeply, and they do think about it, I think a lot of people who are at a high level in the performing arts think about it like in a very kind of like spiritual way. So it's
Right.
natural that some of those same like terminology, and like Stanislavski, for instance, did the same thing, you know, or like if you even go back to like Diderot, like Paradox of the Actor, you know, you see the same kind of ideas, right? Like there's like and in terms of when people started to theorize acting, obviously what Lady Gaga's talking about is a very kind of a vulgar version of it, right? Just kind of like osmosed sort of reduction of this, but still, like when people wanted to like theorize acting in a formal way, it obviously, especially like Stanislavski, you know, like in like sort of coming in the Russian symbolist movement and all that stuff, like it's natural that like, you know, if you read like a Chekhov play, then you can kind of see this kind of like a spiritual yearning, like, and that's where always Stanislavski's method kind of found its footing, is kind of the natural thing to be performed in that way. You can kind of see like how these metaphors or whatever, not even metaphors, like, but these same frameworks like are being applied. So what I guess I'm getting at is sometimes I think when people hear someone talk about acting or performance or in this way, you know, they kind of think like, oh, how bizarre that like they're mentioning
Right.
magic, or they're mentioning religion, or they're mentioning spirituality, or they're mentioning like an alternate self or something. But that's like not
Dissociative
really,
identity.
yeah, that's not really a sign of anything, except in the case, like insofar as like, you know, that's baked into like the sort of culture of the performing arts in general, you know, like, and I think that, and there's something to be said about that, which is I think very interesting, but you know, it's not like, oh, well, Lady Gaga must be a what is the vigilance in terms, a beta sex kitten, you know, like
BSK,
MK alter or whatever. Like, no, like that, like type of thinking is really like part of like how like actors in the contemporary United States train a lot of the time, you know?
Yeah, that's how some actors achieve these incredibly kind of intense and effective performances, is by, in a way, like doing a kind of trained method of dissociation, or switching, if you will, but like consciously switching into an alter of themselves, you know, as basically this character. And
yeah, I mean, I think
and that it can be an intense process to, like, especially if you're doing a role that's emotionally kind of challenging or intense, or, you know, like it isn't just kind of like a dumb Marvel movie. Like,
dissociation might be a bit like extreme. I don't know if like I would necessarily say it like that is dissociate. Like I don't think that Daniel Day-Lewis like dissociates. You know, even these people who are really like into this kind of thing, where they're like,
well, I was going to bring up just briefly, like, the one story about Daniel Day-Lewis and like the intensity of his method was that he was doing a run of Hamlet, you know, a stage play, like maybe in the 90s. And there was one night where he was like so locked in, and he did the scene where the ghost of Hamlet's father appears to him, you know, and tells him to get revenge. And apparently Daniel Day-Lewis like literally saw like an apparition of his actual dead father, and he like fainted, and then like has never done theater again. So like that is a case of perhaps like actually dissociating into like seeing like a ghostly apparition of your own father because you're so identified with Hamlet, who is seeing, you know, but it's not like, it's like he wasn't seeing the actor on stage anymore. He really was seeing a ghost of his real deceased father.
He
so I mean, I take your point
it later on,
it's not
which is like it's interesting to read what he said, actually, because I looked this up because I'm like, is that an apocryphal story? But there's some truth to it. Like, so there's kind of a background. In 1989, Daniel Day-Lewis took on the title role in the National Theater production of Hamlet. It was directed by Richard Eyre, who opted for the uncut text, making this Hamlet nearly 4 hours long, which honestly I think like you should never do. But anyway, the play drew mixed reviews, and Daniel Day-Lewis's performance was slammed by critics. He was attacked for being a film actor. I don't know if you were aware of the long-time debate of film. Well, basically, yeah, like people in theater, you have to ham it up on stage, and like the subtle acting that you do on TV when the camera's right in your face. You know,
they're different
like,
approaches for sure.
They're very different. Yeah, like basically, like if you're trying to do like this subtle emotional stuff, like it's not going to work because you gotta like scream to be like heard on stage, you know, and you gotta like
nobody
really
can judge your facial expressions in an extreme
completely
close-up.
Different. Which is it's a thing with a lot of like actors, honestly. But anyway, the poor reviews devastated him, and after performing the role of the Danish Prince 65 times, he left the stage never to return. The production opened in March, and in September, with only 7 performances left, he collapsed one night and started to sob on stage. It happened during the scene where the ghost of Hamlet's father appears before him. Reports said off stage, Daniel Day-Lewis had slumped to the floor, sobbing, "I can't do it, I'm not going back on." The official statement by the theater was Daniel Day-Lewis had to leave the production on the advice of his doctor due to nervous exhaustion. However, rumors began circling that Daniel saw his dead father on that very night. His father, Cecil Day-Lewis, died when he was 15. His father's death really affected him to the point that he was hospitalized a few months later after taking some pills. This is also the story where he, a teenage boy, performed his greatest acting by convincing the doctor that he was fine.
Wow.
Daniel Day-Lewis has often been asked about the Hamlet incident. In 2003, this is what he said. "It was a very vivid, almost hallucinatory moment in which I was engaged in a dialogue with my father. But that wasn't the reason I had to leave the stage. I had to leave the stage because I was an empty vessel. I had nothing in me, nothing to say, nothing left to give." But this is a quote I find more interesting. This is what he said to Time magazine in 2012. "I may have said a lot of things in the immediate aftermath, and to some extent I probably saw my father's ghost every night, because of course you're working in a play like Hamlet, you explore everything through your own experience. That correspondence between father and son, or son and father who is no longer alive, played a huge part in that experience. So yes, of course, it was communication with my own dead father, but I don't remember seeing any ghosts of my father on that dreadful night." So
okay, interesting. Well,
yeah, that's what he said. You know, people.
Well,
Richard Eyre said his problem was not so much his relationship with the ghost of his father as his relationship with the play. He wrestled nightly with his subjects: fathers, mothers, sons, grief, suicide, sex, love, revenge, intellect, violence, pacifism, discipline, and death. And if they floored him, he was guilty of not neurosis or incompetence, but of an excess of ambition. Yeah, Hamlet was the last part I should have asked him to play. So, well, yeah, but
Yeah.
that's like kind of, I feel like that kind of goes to my point in a way where like, he's saying, oh, I was seeing him every night, like, and that's and he's saying, of course, I was talking to my dead father. Yeah.
But it wasn't. Also, something that is brought up that I think is relevant to that in both musicians is like the effect of nervous exhaustion, and like sometimes both the emotional like intensity of like having to perform on that level, and also like the schedule these people are on. I feel like Lady Gaga got like taken off the road a number of times for quote unquote exhaustion, and so have a lot of other like pop stars.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
sometimes you could say maybe that's like because of like drugs or like they're partying too hard, but I also think like it's like a very intense thing they have to do. This is like kind of like being a professional athlete in a certain type of way. So there is that aspect of just like the performing arts in general, that there's going to be that element that you're right, like can sometimes be in a reductive way, like misinterpreted by sort of like the vigilant citizens out there. At the same time, I think there is something interesting, and because she is playing with this idea of like pop stars being, I think from some of her earliest videos, she was always trafficking in this like very edgy, specific kind of techno dystopian aesthetic that obviously had a lot of different influences. But I remember, I'm trying to think which music video it was where, like, I'm sure Vigilant Citizen did an early write up on it, but it's like a bunch of like shady international like Russian businessmen type guys in some kind of like futuristic big like kind of spaceship room, and then all of these like chrome bikinied like model robots like come out on like a conveyor belt, and I think like Lady Gaga is like one of them, and then one of the businessmen like pays with like a fucking like some kind of smartphone device and like purchases her, and she's like the robot like from Metropolis. Like she's playing with this idea that I'm kind of like a puppet of like the music industry or something, but she's also like rebelling against it, like because she's aware of it, and that there is that very like clever kind of
and I feel like Lana Del Rey was like a later like based Americana version of that same kind of idea of like meta pop.
Yeah.
Stuff.
Though it's funny how they've kind of gone in like different directions now in terms of like I think their influence on the culture. Like I think you could argue that Lana Del Rey has sort of never been, her cultural cachet has never been higher in some respects, and like the hate for her, like she kind of defeated the haters, like because there were a lot of people like criticizing her, when she first came out.
She survived.
Because I think she always had the more kind of like problematic character versus Lady Gaga, who was like the androgynous
Little Monsters,
Little Monsters, like the kind of progressive, like good, the person that like Obama would like endorse, is like the best pop star ever. And she did write. She
very
was
like
kind of
Hillary.
an early.
She's like the Hillary of pop.
Which I guess I'm trying to remember now. Like I don't even feel like it felt like super fresh in like 2008, 2009 when Lady Gaga came out to be like kind of that. Kind of proudly queer coded, but it did make kind of a splash, and I think maybe it was just that she was the first of that generation of like pop stars after like the Bush years. She was the first one to like really kind of embody it and like talk about it a lot, and like really and also really like kind of shouting out her like her Little Monsters and her like core like gay fan base, because like I think you were studying theater back then. I was my first job out of college was working for like a dance competition, like a dance moms kind of thing.
I remember this.
I was doing videography work. Yeah, and I was like traveling the country doing videography work.
Wasn't there one thing where it's like life is a high? Like what was it like?
It was
I died in a car crash. It was something like that. Like some like girl did like a dance to like a song about dying in a car crash.
Oh yeah, like I died in a car crash. Yeah. There were some amazing song selections. Honestly, that's how I really got plugged into like what the I guess like young millennials and like old Zoomers were like that's where I first heard Adele for the first time. Was like all of these dance routines were like using like the saddest Adele songs ever from like her first album.
But
and I was like,
someone like put
British
up like
girl?
the music video from like the Cars soundtrack or something like after that, something like that.
I wish I could remember. Like
story,
it was all
like,
a blur because I'd have to work 20-hour shifts, but it was. There was some wacky, like, you go to like the middle of you go to like, Indianapolis,
That's
that was the first time I went to
can
Detroit.
imagine it's a really dark field. Like I feel like like dance moms type stuff.
No, it was, and it was also like peak. This is like 2010, so it was really in like the doldrums of like the recession, kind of around the country, and shit was kind of rough. But that was around the time like Lady Gaga was definitely very popular in those like dance studios and kind of blowing it. That was, I think. But I was gonna say, like, I worked with a lot of like musical theater people that I was like on tour with, and like a lot of musical theater gays, and like they fucking loved Lady Gaga. I mean, they got me to kind of be like, I eventually was kind of like, you know what? I thought the Fame Monster, the second, forget, was it an album or an EP, but the one with like Alejandro and Bad Romance on it. I thought like this is a solid pop album. Like
I don't think I ever listened to one of her albums
on
like all the way through, but I do also remember like all my friends who were gay being like, like I love Lady Gaga and like I think she's brilliant. And like I remember one of my friends saying to me like I could write a dissertation on Lady Gaga, and saying that exact thing of like I think, she's like being meta or whatever. It's like, well, like it's not. But yeah. But,
well, actually, did you know this? That when she was at NYU, she was in the Cap 21 program, which like it makes so much sense. It makes so much sense. That is really the musical theater. That's the musical theater department, and like you knew more of those people than I did. I mean, like all sweet people, but like very specific. Very specific
that's
people.
Like the kind of person that's like really, really a theater kid, Like,
truly.
When people
like,
think of like a theater kid, like that's like what a Cap 21 kid is like,
Like if you went to a dorm room party with like Cap 21 people, like they would break into
they
like
would be singing
Brigadoon or
Absolutely.
something. Yeah, like Cats. Like
no
they
question
would
about
jump
it. They
up,
would be
start
on the
dancing,
piano.
Like,
and like if not if you were at a party with them, like if you were just like hanging out with them or whatever, like they would be singing like intermittently. And that's what theater that's what a lot of musical theater people are like.
Yeah.
They just like
they
just love it. They're just always singing. They just love to sing,
Right. Right.
And they love musicals and stuff. Oh man, speaking of sus musicals, I found out something that was sus, that like incidentally that I wish I knew during our Secret Machine music episodes. Stephen Sondheim. First of all, Stephen Sondheim
I'll see where you're gonna go with this, but I feel like I might know what you're talking about. But go on. Because I found something weird too that I wish I knew. But
I was gonna say was that he was a student of Milton Babbitt. Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
Sondheim called Milton Babbitt a frustrated show composer with whom he formed a perfect combination. And remember, Babbitt was like, who cares if they listen? Sondheim is like the only student of Milton Babbitt's who like actually like had like mainstream success. And like I guess that's what Milton Babbitt's legacy is Stephen Sondheim. And I was like, I wish I could have known that before. Yeah. It's crazy. Like he really I'm not saying he was not talented, but he really had his entire career handed to him. He was like the protege of like Oscar Hammerstein and everything. Like he is he wasn't a Nepo baby in a way because like his parents weren't anybody, but he was definitely,
he was selected early on.
Yeah. Chosen heir.
Wow. Interesting. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, musical theater people, they're very specific. She, I guess her first like appearance on TV was on a show, MTV's Boiling Points, a prank reality television show where she played an unsuspecting diner customer. That's funny, actually. That was one of the hard things of reality is being in proximity to MTV, which by that point was just like infested with shitty reality TV. But like just how fake, like knowing people that like process the tapes for like, as interns or shit for like The Hills. And I remember one of our friends did that and they were like, it's all fake. Like they do takes. Like it's not a reality show. You know what I mean? Like it's not even that it's deceptively edited. They're literally doing takes. Like it's Curb Your Enthusiasm or something. And and I guess hiring Lady Gaga to like pretend to be a random person that gets pranked. That was I was just reading about Road Rules last night. Because that guy Theo Vaughn, that like I forgot that like he was a Road Rules guy, and he's the guy who just interviewed Bernie,
right?
And I forgot like how exploitative and like weird like the MTV reality shit was in the 90s.
Well, that's the thing. Like, or you mean in the early 2000s?
Oh, yeah, 90s, early 2000s, because the contracts they signed were like evil with like Barnum and Murray or whatever, where I guess, and same with CBS, where if you were on Road Rules or Real World, anything you did the following 2 years had to be like classified as an MTV promotional appearance, and you would be paid a flat fee of $750, and MTV would like keep the rest of the money. So like all the people on the Road Rules got like a jeans commercial that was like national, and normally you'd make like 10, 20, 30 grand off of like a national commercial, but they all got paid $750, and then like MTV took all the rest. And then you couldn't like, they had like, I think CBS had veto power over like people that were on Survivor, that like you couldn't accept any job, like any acting job, like until Survivor had like basically all premiered. And then for like 2 years after that, CBS had veto power over any acting job you took to like protect the Survivor brand. So all these people got paid like nothing, and then also had their like reputations kind of like ruined in Hollywood, because people also had that weird like stigma about reality, you know, TV actors and stuff. And it was almost like porn. It was like really, it's honestly pretty fucking sus in retrospect.
Well, that's what I was gonna. Yeah, it's true. I remember actually they brought like a bunch of like reality producers to come talk to us like right around when I was graduating from undergrad, and like talk about like, you know, what it's like to work on reality, like to be a writer on reality TV, you know, because like it's totally like they do have writers. You know, they don't have like scripts necessarily. Maybe they do in some cases, but like not, you know, uniformly. But they're like, you know, what if these people had a conversation about this? You know, they do like plot it. Like, I mean, everybody's not a secret to anybody. Anyway, so
they're usually called producers, but that's what they're doing.
Exactly. Yeah. But what I wanted to say about Lady Gaga is that, like, yeah, in a way, like, I was thinking of actually, you know, speaking, someone who I knew from undergrad had like kind of a semi-viral like internet video suggesting that the movie that A Star Is Born with Lady Gaga in it took place in an alternate reality where 9/11 never happened. And I don't remember exactly, like, because like part of the argument was, I watched it one time, but it was a while ago. But part of the argument was that like it doesn't make any sense for Bradley Cooper to be like so popular in like the sort of genre of like country-ish rock, you know, like he's like this megastar, but like that genre isn't really like the, you know, like right now, like that genre isn't kind of like the defining. So obviously at some point history took an alternate trajectory. I don't remember why it was decreed to be 9/11, but what I was going to say is that like relative to that kind of, there's sort of something there, because like the sort of like Lady Gaga's whole thing of kind of being like performatively fake and like excessively theatrical, that kind of fit with the moment where like everyone was getting on social media for the first time. Like everyone, you know, like, yeah, like reality TV was becoming like the definitive form of television, you know, and everything was kind of shifting on like, you know, this was kind of like before Netflix. It was really during that weird time where like people didn't really watch TV per se, but everything was like just kind of becoming online. It's like, yeah, weird. But you know, there was definitely that sense of like everyone having an altar, you know, because of this huge revolution that was sort of quietly beginning to happen with how people like perform themselves online. And, you know, and I remember the finale to The Hills, you know, I think I might have mentioned it before, where like, you know, the like the Hollywood Hills themselves like kind of like disappear, and you see that they're all like on a sound stage or whatever, and they kind of like tip their hand to show that this is actually illusory, and kind of acknowledge it at the very last moment, you know, because kind of everyone tacitly knew, but like went along with the conceit of it being reality. But yeah, and I think that was something that was really, you know, coming to the fore during that time. So she was like kind of suited to that moment in a way, whereas before there was like a stronger emphasis on authenticity. Like, I mean, think about like, you know, again, we talked about this before, but like, you know, compared to like, you know, who were the biggest like sort of youth stars in the 90s, like, you know, like Kurt Cobain or something like that, or even the Smashing Pumpkins. People got like outraged when they did Adore. When Billy Corgan did that album Adore, you know, that was like kind of electronic and like not like raw and authentic enough, or even like Conor Oberst, you know, he was like someone who everybody adored like as we were going into college, you know, and then like next thing you know, it's all like Lady Gaga and all this shit.
That's
like,
true, actually. I feel like that was actually
sort of cult
like
of authenticity in music kind of like collapsed, you know?
Right. Like it was also the dawn of kind of that poptimism era of like the early
the
Obama
rockists.
years.
Yeah, we were all rockists.
Yeah.
And then suddenly Lady Gaga came along.
I remember that was a very like significant vibe shift that happened probably, I'd say most acutely between like 2009 and 2010 was the shift from like indie, meaning like predominantly rock bands, to like electronic stuff also being kind of like real. I mean, it was like always there in the kind of indie milieu. You had like the bands throughout the 2000s that like the electro clash bands, right? But I think using it to kind of smuggle it into like mainstream pop music, that's something that kind of Lady Gaga did, and then the formulas started getting like repeated by like Katy Perry, by Kesha, like, you know, all these like Dr. Luke artists, and they kind of like bridge that gap between like more rockist like indie sleaze and then like the kind of
Indie
EDM
sleaze,
dupstep era.
Yeah,
it's funny. Like
what's
indie
up with the
sleaze
idea
was
of
not.
indie sleaze? Was that
just
a
for
thing?
any of
I
our
do not remember
listeners,
that being a thing.
It was not like that. Was not a thing. Nobody called it that back when it was. It does refer to a phenomenon, but nobody called it that. Who was actually around in the 2000s? Time to put on my old man trucker hat and explain like what. Even though I was too young to like really catch like that first wave of like the early 2000s New York, which was like right after 9/11, like really in the shadow of the towers in you know, Williamsburg. But that whole kind of the scene with like LCD Sound System and all those like dance punk bands and Peaches and all that stuff, that was either called indie or derisively like hipster stuff. Like that's what hipster music was. And then like Bright Eyes was also like, Bright Eyes was like, you could call it emo. You could also call it indie. You could also kind of call it hipster. Like emo, indie, hipster were like three
Hipsters
flavors that like
there's been like some discourse about this right now. At least I saw like some people talking about, you know, or I was shown some people talking about like how the sort of like the sort of JD Vance cluster, not really necessarily him per se or his immediate circle, but like that kind of like younger like trad guys, like they all like, you know, want to wear like suspenders and have like beards, you know, basically they look like hipsters in like the early 2010s or like late 2000s.
Yeah, the Mumford
like,
and Sons era.
And there was like a trad element to that though, where it was like return with a V to like, you know,
that
double
Portland
edge
culture
shaving and like, you know,
and like the manly shave club
and, like,
or
waxing
whatever.
your shoes or whatever. Yeah. It was it was weird. It was like kind of coinciding with like the popularity of Mad Men, where like of course, you know, it was an indictment of the 60s culture, but also it was like, you know,
how cool it was.
Yeah, exactly. And every like a huge influence on like the fashion and the style of the time, like where there was this weird kind of like nostalgia like over everything. And so in a way, like that kind of portended this sort of you know, these are the traditionalist currents that we see coming up now, because there was a certain traditionalism about that.
Well, I think,
like,
you know,
an embarrassing fact about
that
me,
is
during
true.
that time I actually tried, I kind of got psyoped by like someone talking about how like superior this was, and I actually tried straight razor shaving. And I will say it actually is good. You will never get a closer shave than with a straight razor. However, it's a ton of work, and it's not like that. It's not worth it.
No,
you know, but I did get psyoped for a while. I was like, oh wow, maybe I am being, because they're like, you're being scammed by the disposable razor industry, and it's like,
right.
But it's taking me like 45 minutes to shave, you know. Like, so yeah.
All these little Patrick Bateman affectations started proliferating around then. And then, I think I've seen it before. Maybe it was Brad Trammell that was saying this in his hipster report, but that eventually, like, all those hipster identities, I'd say by like the mid 2010s, could no longer become hipster because they just were kind of absorbed into like the mainstream culture now.
Yeah.
So now somebody could dress. There are like normies living in like the exurbs that go to like Applebee's that might be dressed the way like a Portland 2010 like heckin' polyamorous, like, you know, artisanal moonshine, you know, distiller guy like would be dressed up as, you know, with like a waxed beard and like, you know, suspenders or something like that.
I remember there was someone, we kind of made fun of him a little bit because it was so over the top, but yeah, I knew someone who had like a wax like mustache who like sort of waxed it up to point up had like kind of that like sort of Robin Hood goatee thing going on. It was very... But that was like something where it's like, all right, this is like acceptable for you to appear this way at that time, you know?
And there's other stuff going on with like in the early 2000s, kind of a co-optation of like Red State or like Midwestern aesthetics, with, like the trucker
like
hats.
PBR. Remember PBR?
Yeah, PBR.
That was huge.
PBR.
Yeah.
It was like a code that like you're a hipster if like you
Exactly.
drink PBR, and it's like,
Yeah.
okay, I'm trying to think that like porn mustaches, like 70s vintage, like eventually just Urban Outfitters started like selling fake like 70s vintage kind
Yeah.
of shirts, but like that was a thing. And then I think around like the time Obama came around,
flannel, that type of thing. Yeah.
yeah, like mid to late 2000s kind of got into like a soft boy like aesthetic, because like a lot of people were opposed to the war, and you kind of like you wanted to like rebel against like evil macho like Bush like culture or whatever. That maybe kind of segued into the kind of, I think what I was going to say earlier was like I remember like really being focused more on like indie rock music, and then around 2009, I guess maybe also, I don't know, just like it seemed like a lot of people just started dropping like bedroom like electronic produced like records, you know, and like Pitchfork would like review them, or you know, they just pop up on like YouTube and shit. And I remember getting like really into like, yeah, like beats and like, you know, chill wave, I think is what it was called back then. Remember like Neon Indian?
Chill wave, yeah.
Yeah, which, you know, in retrospect was kind of like, now, I don't know, there's so much more of it. But in the moment, it kind of felt like, I don't know, maybe because the economy and the music industry bottomed out, there's also a big economic disincentive to like, it's kind of more expensive and more logistically complicated to like be in a band, unless you're kind of really doing like a local or like DIY or punk kind of thing, then you can kind of scrap by. But like in terms of getting like a indie record deal on like Saddle Creek, and then like getting paid to go on a tour, like I feel like a lot of that shit like fell off for like bands. But if you're just like a guy with a laptop, hey, like you could just sit at home and like you don't need studio time or like to buy a bunch of expensive equipment even, but if you buy a few analog synths, everyone's gonna be like, whoa, crazy, and then like you know, you got to build a brand for yourself. So then that's where I think you saw like things that would become dominant in the 2010s that would be kind of like hipster, but now really are just kind of like not barely even alt, like a, you know, like a Toro y Moi or like Tame Impala, and like those kind of groups like Washed Out, like those groups kind of started coming out. And then so much of that music, like God, I heard Phoenix playing at the closing ceremony of the Olympics, and that was like such a weird throwback to like, yeah, I don't know, 2011, 2012 maybe, of like this like French like indie band, like, and it's just weird that like now everyone calls that indie sleaze.
Fleet Foxes. Well, that's the thing.
Too.
Like
that was a soft boy era when the
indie sleaze like in
hit.
our time, like when we were in school and like a little bit after. Like indie sleaze was just like what the Suspenders people did like when they were like partying, you know,
like
it
they
wasn't
do bad coke and like
they were
drink
like
a lot of PBR.
It was the same people. It wasn't like then as indie people or hipsters in general, I guess. I don't know. Like, not that anyone was,
I mean, not
indie,
all
like, you know,
like not all indie and hipster people had the sleaze thing going on. The sleaze thing was there, but it wasn't like the complete, just like everybody was sleazing out. You know, I mean, there was a little, you know,
and I feel like it wasn't like
Y2K.
a thing where it's like you're either sleaze or you're not. It was like just, like at times everyone was maybe sleazy or whatever, or like some people were sleazy at times, but it wasn't like a 24/7 sleaze lifestyle aesthetic thing.
No,
you know, it was,
I mean, there was like
American
Apparel. American Apparel and its advertising was very sleazy, but that wasn't like the whole of like hipsterdom. Like there were definitely more like soft like hipster vibes as well, but they weren't really in opposition. It just was like that was like the big hipster tent kind of had these different tendencies going on, and generally more like liberal politics. So like anything that was like had sex and it would like piss off Bush and like good, you know, like nobody like I remember seeing the Black Lips and they would just get like really drunk and like make out with each other, but they're not really like gay. They would just like do that because they're crazy, you know.
It's
and
like
like
Maddie
people
Healy,
like,
you know. Like,
no, it was like Maddie Healy. Honestly, Black Lips, like I think they're sus and got canceled, but like honestly, like way fucking better band than like the 1975 ever was. Like it's not even close. But now we have that like very sanitized, integrated kind of like indie sound that is not like actually like materially indie in any way.
I mean, it's so weird. It's one of those things where like it's ridiculous, like the way that everyone like dressed back like then, only that was a couple years ago. Like, so it's really like, you know, now I feel like I don't notice like, you know, the like what people, even what young people wear now, but I guess, you know, kind of a banal observation, but I guess in time it will seem strange. Like there will be kind of a like an aesthetic that like defines the current time. but now I just feel like whatever, you know.
Right. I mean, I kind of could clock like maybe the 2000s are clear enough in the rear view now that I think I could clock like a very 2009 outfit or something like that. But I don't generally think those were like really good years aesthetically. Like 2009 to like 2011, like kind of floppish sort of years.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like that was when like LMFAO was like super big and like Hype Beast kind of like EDM and I mean, you know, I mean, it was Lady Gaga. Lady Gaga kind of stood tall in that era as like being this like fashionista. And I mean,
I remember the meat dress.
Yeah, the meat dress. So, like the fucking meat dress. And then remember she went to the cannibalism party. That's been memed a million times. But like she went to like the fake like cannibalism party that Marina Abramovich threw where there was like a lifelike I think she had models that were like pretending to be dead and there was kind of like a cake around them and it was supposed to be like, you know, there was like red
Marina Abramovich
frosting.
crossover moment. Interesting. Yeah, right. I didn't realize Lady Gaga was an attendee here.
Oh yeah. That was an early thing that like Vigilant Citizen would jump on. I bet she's an occultist, folks.
Talk about meat. This is absolute red meat this is crazy.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like she made Vigilant Citizen. Like, I mean, also, just her family. It's funny that Wikipedia says I feel like a sentence that like should not be accurate, which is that Stephanie Joanne Angelina Germanotta was born into an upper middle class Catholic family in 1986 at Lenox Hill Hospital in Manhattan, New York City. You know, her parents were Italian, but I feel like upper middle class Lady Gaga. Like, I don't think so. Like, you know, I think she grew up on the Upper West Side. And I feel like her dad is like some big muckety muck internet.
If you're like a New York City kid, that's like pretty.
That's the thing. She's a Manhattan kid. Also, these kids are like different. Like the ones who grow up in Manhattan are like a very specific type of person.
They really
like,
are. Yeah.
I mean, you know, I like a lot of them are like cool, but like very
kids who may be listening. You know,
there probably are a few because
you know, you're unique. You're singular. Well, not singular because you're a type, but
I mean, like none of them know how to. None of them drive cars. Like I know you kind of.
I also don't know how to drive, but that's my fault.
Like,
I didn't take my road test 5 times.
Yeah. But I feel like it's truly foreign to them. Like you know, like the notion of driving is like, what the fuck? Like, why would you ever do that? Which is like, I don't know, interesting. As a Californian, it's interesting, and also just like. When you grow up in Manhattan, like there's a precociousness, just like with sort of like rich LA kids. Like there's a precocious, but I think it's more intense in New York because you're like in the center of the universe. And like chances are if you grow up in, you know, the Upper West Side and you go to the private, like elite Catholic school that, you know, you're mixing and mingling with like a lot of like powerful and wealthy people that are like close to, you know, shit. And then, you know, when a kid like that goes to like NYU, it's like, their local school, like I don't know. I guess she did live in the dorms, but yeah. Like I mean, somebody who is hypothetically my like you know graduated my year, who I like didn't even know existed until like years later, was Alexander Soros, like George Soros' son, who now is like the heir to the Open Society Foundations and now the fiance of Huma Abedin. Of all people.
Right.
But like, yeah, before anybody, you know, like puts 2 and 2 together and says, I'm sus, like I had no idea who he was back then. And he probably like, that dude probably took a limo to like his classes every day. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think he ever lived in like a dorm with everybody else. You know what I mean? It's like when the Olsen twins went, you know, to like study fashion or, you know, something like that. It's like it's just a way to like be in the mix. Like, and I don't know. And then they drop out, you know? So, let me see. I forgot what her like
Lady
dad.
Gaga has its own Wikipedia article.
Every dress.
The meat dress does. Not everyone, but the meat dress has its own Wikipedia article.
This is funny. American pop star Lady Gaga's father, Joe Germanotta, has led an effort against hundreds of unruly migrants who have quote taken over his Upper West Side.
What?
His Upper West Side, his neighborhood. They've just taken over his neighborhood. This is from last year. Stating that a lot of pop-ups, stating that they are abusing residents among more bad behavior. New York Post published, he lives in the Pythian apartment complex near the Stratford Arms
This is one of
Hotel.
Elon's mom's friends who, that was another element of the Trump-Elon interview where he was like, you know, anecdotally, I'm just talking to my mom and, you know, she lives in New York and I asked her.
I heard about that.
Do you know
like
anyone
3 of her friends have been assaulted.
Yeah, been assaulted. And they don't report the guy because they know he won't be prosecuted. It's like, fool, if you're like mugged in New York, the reason why you wouldn't report the guy is because it's like a bunch of hassle when they're never gonna catch him. You know, like they're never gonna like find who did that. You know, like
right. If
just,
somebody's just like roughed up on the street and then there's like not, yeah.
And also, first of all, I don't believe that they've been assaulted at all. I feel like that's the type of person who, like, you know, not to gaslight Elon's mom's anecdotal friends, but like I feel like they're the kind of people who would be like think that they were victims of the knockout game because they like slipped in the stair, you know, while like a bunch of unruly teens were like running past them or something. They would be like, I was assaulted, you know, like old South African. Well, they're not necessarily South African, but you know what I mean, like old New York.
And the mom is she's the American one that has like weird like not transhumanist, but the Technocracy Incorporated father, who thought that Canada was too leftist and moved his family to South Africa. Yeah, so that's her background. But yeah, Joe Germanau's not. He's mad that they're in the Stratford Arms Hotel. Okay, yeah, he's got an Instagram. I forget what he did like he made like 90s internet money, which is like interesting. I wonder what kind of Josh Harris shit he was into, but it's not really popping up. So I mean, in terms of the question of like, oh, well, now she was freaky and countercultural, but now she's involved with the Biden campaign and blah, blah, blah. I mean, that's been coming for a long time. Like Lady Gaga
like she was
kind
never,
of weaponizing
like,
herself.
You know, it's not like she was really... Yeah, I mean, like, she was, like,
she was celebrated.
Yeah,
she was very celebrated once she came out, and she really did blow up, and she got a lot of major media attention. I did notice here that actually, like, she went on Barbara Walters, and Barbara Walters, like, asked her about the rumors that she was intersex. That's what it was. That specifically, like, people were spreading rumors, and then she said, like, I like androgyny, and then everyone was like, yes. You know, so so really, I forgot how much, like, the mainstream media was, like, fanning, I don't know, like, paying attention to that rumor when... I don't know. Just seemed like, okay, she's just like a girl who dresses up like... I never
kind of
dresses up like a drag queen
until,
sometimes.
like, the... like celebrity owns like interviewer compilations started to like come around, you know, recently.
But she always has been, I think, as far back as like the very early 2010s, been kind of like lending her voice to like political causes and stuff. I think there's a couple mentioned here. Let me see. I think she did like an anti-fracking thing. Oh, you know what? You know what one of the first things was? This is actually an interesting thing to like look into maybe one day, in as far as like sus humanitarian efforts go, but she joined like that big celebrity kind of effort around raising money for Haiti after the 2010 earthquake. Remember that? Mm-hmm. Remember like Sean Penn was like wading around in the water there, like doing all kinds of shit, and all these people. Yeah, there was just a lot. Like, I mean, obviously a horrible situation, but like everyone really like jumped on it. And also the Fukushima 2011. God, I almost forgot that was like a huge story in 2011, right? So I guess interesting, actually. Yeah, she declined an invitation to appear on the single We Are the World 25 for Haiti because of rehearsals for her tour. But then she donated the proceeds of her January 2010 Radio City concert to the country's Reconstruction Relief Fund. And then she tweeted a link to Japan prayer bracelets after the Fukushima thing and did a concert for the Japanese Red Cross. In 2012, she joined the campaign group Artists Against Fracking. That October, Yoko Ono gave Gaga and 4 other activists the Lennon Ono Grant for Peace in Reykjavik, Iceland. The following month, she pledged to donate $1 million to the American Red Cross to help victims of Hurricane Sandy. She got kind of involved with like HIV and AIDS charities. And then, here we go. Yeah, in April, we forget actually how hard she went in 2016 for Hillary. Like, she went very hard, right? Like that. So the Biden thing is not new. I guess she actually joined in April 2016 Vice President Joe Biden at University of Nevada, Las Vegas, to support his It's On Us campaign as he traveled to colleges on behalf of the organization, which I guess is an organization which has seen 250,000 students from 530 colleges sign a pledge of solidarity and activism. Great. Awesome. Oh my God, this is funny. 2 months later, she attended the 84th U.S. Conference of Mayors in Indianapolis, where together with the Dalai Lama, she talked about the power of kindness and how to make the world a more compassionate place. Also, Tim Walz, kind of a friend of the Dalai Lama. They definitely have pics together.
Right, yeah.
Well, we might have to look into Tim's Chinese adventures one day, right?
Yeah, right.
Because he picked an interesting time to go teach English there.
That is, we forgot
1989.
That is a weird element, of Tim Walz history.
Very interesting. Yeah. So, okay, she did a bunch of COVID stuff and then supported BLM and et cetera. She also launched the Born This Way Foundation in 2012. Yeah, Oprah Winfrey, Deepak Chopra, and Kathleen Sebelius spoke at the foundation's inauguration at Harvard University. She gave them $1.2 million, $500K from the MacArthur Foundation, and $850K from Barney's New York. Yeah, they're just Born This Way, etc.
I'm reading Lady Gaga's, or one of her writing the essay, Art in the World essays.
From college?
Yeah. You never did take that, right?
No, I didn't. No.
Yeah, no. You're right, because you're a transfer student.
I transferred in, so yeah.
Yeah. This is the sort of mandatory, the one where they brought every freshman into an auditorium to make them watch Zizek one time. Zizek.
Oh, that's where the Zizek.
Yeah.
The forced Zizek watching.
Yeah, so this is for the Zizek class. It was written in 2004. So this was a while before I was in undergrad. In terms of the human body, the terms of the human body, some might say, are determined through a theoretical dissection of both the private environments and public atmospheres in which we live. By terms, the rules and evaluations of bodily condition, I mean to establish a division of perception. The first divide is that of the social body, the perception of our bodies in relation to a larger intellectual and sexual community, one that views each other in groups. The second divide is the condition of our nature, a perception of the body without relation or comparison, a singular entity that is independent, formless, and free. This segregation of seeing is general and yet universal because it capitalizes our differences. By examining these seeming generalizations, we break them down. It is through a demolition and reconstruction of these concepts that we can assign specificity and reason to these ways in which we look. All right.
Wow.
So.
Okay.
Well, yeah, that's one of her freshmen. Pretty
precocious
good.
for an
I definitely read.
18-year-old.
We definitely read worse essays in that class. The perceptions of the nude and the deformed both manifest out of a concept of the social body. This is not I'm skipping ahead a little bit. And the ideological contrast and visible conflict that is created in their presence. In Of a Monstrous Child, Montaigne asks us to consider the way we look at the body and at each other. Montaigne suggests, what we call monsters are not so to God, who sees in the immensity of his work the infinity of forms that he has comprised in it. And it is for us to believe that this figure that astonishes us is related and linked to some other figure of the same kind unknown to man. When we view something contrary to custom, we assign them a monstrous quality. Wow, really, this is you can see the themes.
Monsters.
Yeah, we infer based on something's lack of ordinariness that it is disgusting or somehow linked to something inhumane, she wrote, but I guess she means inhuman. In some cases, one might say uncivilized. In light of Montaigne's theory that we assign the unordinary with a monstrous condition, we can see the viewpoint from which art critics, the government, and the public condemn Spencer Tunick's work with naked bodies. Because it is not socially ordinary, it is irregular to see that many nudes amassed at one time. The art possesses a grotesque quality for the viewer. Blah, blah, blah. She talks about Kenneth Tynan, pretty famous director. Kenneth Tynan, the author of several sexually thematic plays, including O Calcutta, a show done entirely in the nude, has expressed this in his published diaries a personal infatuation with sexuality and an interest in its relationship to society and history. In an October entry during 1972, just a few years after O Calcutta closed, he ventures to further his knowledge and fascination through psychoanalysis and provides it with the perspective of what some might call an artistic sex maniac. Unlike Spencer Tunick's work, Tynan embraces the human body's sexuality as its primary and most important function. It is a body that cannot be freed of its sexual condition. He criticizes Freud, who hypothesized an ideal sexual act from which all deviations, sexual fetishes, were heresies to be purified by confession and rooted out in the annealing fires of analyses. While attempting to escape the stereotype of a sex-hungry chauvinist, Tynan finds Freud's interpretation of sexual goodness, which is ultimately an interpretation of intercourse in relationship to society and nature, to lack an understanding of the human relationship with the body. He calls his work ideal and reveals a kind of disgust for the psychoanalytic world in relation to sexual nature, classifying Freud's writing as scorching fire, a method of analysis that distorts our human nature by searing its purpose and condition into society. This modern sexual relationship is evident most clearly for Tynan in a Eurosexual openness, a perspective that embraces fetish and profane desire as our most fundamental and primitive form of sex, seeing the human body only as a form with sexual signification. Interesting. Well, I think you can read Lady Gaga's work through that lens, definitely, through a lot of what's brought up there. I can see why this essay has been included on Gagapedia.
Right.
The
I mean,
fan
this is
wiki of Lady
canon,
Gaga.
I guess.
Yeah, it's.
I was looking here. Lady Gaga definitely she threw down in the past, notably in 2014 during the previous conflict in Gaza. A lot of people canceled their appearances after the Israeli response, which killed a lot of people, but not the good lady. She went there, and the Times of Israel wrote a very positive article about how awesome and brave Lady Gaga is for not kowtowing to the Hamas terrorists and standing by Israel, et cetera, et cetera. I just noticed, there's a long review of her concert here, but I think the first photo that gave me pause was this picture of her, this kind of a very Psy outfit, and there's a bunch of neon glow in the dark paint in the crowd, and she was doing a Go a Psytrance thing at her Tel Aviv show back in 2014. Yeah, so she was aware of that aesthetic and she was giving the people what they wanted. But now I think she's been kind of silent in since October 7th about
yeah, as many have. Unfortunately.
Yeah, I think
even
now,
DJ Khaled, I think, has not said a single thing still.
Wow, that's crazy. Yeah, people, I was looking on. Yeah,
according
she's
to his
kind of
own
been quiet.
cousin, he is not welcome in Palestine. DJ Khaled, that is.
Wow, wow. Where is DJ Khaled's family from?
From Palestine.
Oh, he's Palestinian?
Yeah, which is why it's so galling that he has said nothing.
That's crazy. That's fucking crazy. Yeah.
But
I
guess,
mean, now.
Lady Gaga said the world's view of Israel is wrong. It is a beautiful place.
Right. Did she say that now or in 2014?
That was a while ago. I guess it was 2014.
Yeah, she popped up a lot in 2014 about it, but not so much now.
Wow.
And I mean, she is a Hollywood actress now, and she's also doing big pharma commercials for a little while. They were on CNN all the time. I forget what it was for, but Lady Gaga's she's definitely eaten. She's obviously, I think she is definitely one of the more sophisticated pop stars, and I would put her a little bit in a different category if we're going to get Vigilant Citizen about it, than say the Disney stars that the Demi Lovatos and Ariana. Not to deny them any creative agency, but I feel like Lady Gaga, even though she did have some bad things happen to her, when she was first starting out, kind of has had a remarkable amount of creative control over her whole identity from pretty much the beginning. So she does a lot of weird shit, but I generally feel with her that she wants to do that weird shit. And she's got some kind of idea behind it of why she needs to use all this Luciferian weird symbolism mixed with
definitely.
Berlin gay techno stuff.
She's a true theater kid.
She's a true theater kid, and she did, I think, very self-aware.
She's gone full circle now because she's going to be in the Joker sequel, which I guess will be a musical, right?
Oh my God!
Yeah.
So I think for her, all the demons and the whatevers are just fun and interesting, and I think she probably did lean into maybe at a certain point when I'm sure she's aware that people would say she's in the Illuminati, and she was probably perhaps one of the first to be yeah, I am, and kind of lean into it as that's cool, it just as a cool thing, and play around with it. So I don't know, but I also feel her music, she really has been focusing on other things the last maybe 6 or 7 years, and I feel she's sort of lost the mandate of pop heaven a little bit. She had a pretty strong, honestly, by Born This Way, I was feeling it was getting a little corny. I was not as impressed as I was the previous record. I think I did watch her was Chromatica or something. The Chromatica Ball, I think, is her live streamed concert that has like tons of brutalist architecture and weird cyberpunk stuff. And I actually didn't watch the whole thing, but then she says things about gun violence and abortion rights. I mean, that's actually kind of like in right now to have like your pop stars like give a monologue. Did I tell you about this sort of like a goth punk show that I went to here in LA?
No, I don't think so.
No, it was interesting because the opener, a friend of the show, longtime listener John, was playing with like one of the opening bands, I think at the Echo, but then the headliner band was like clearly a band that was like got big off TikTok, like, and it was like a guy, and he kind of had like these, I think, like kind of these two touring musicians like with him, but he was like this punk who's also like a military veteran from like either from like Afghanistan, and was like super left wing, but like he would give these like monologues like in between every song that was just like, it's not how it was back like even, I don't know, like 5 years ago before TikTok, in terms of like the prominence of the political monologue, like it's setting up every song and like kind of explaining like this next song is about fucking imperialism and like these fucking douchebags are gonna fucking shit, and then like the drummer starts like playing in the background and like that's why we had to fucking resist and say fuck you, and like like it was like that kind of stuff. But then he also did a bit where like he asked everybody to like hold up pictures of their cats, because I guess like maybe it's a recurring like thing he does, and everybody in the crowd like whipped out their phones and was like waving pictures of cats. And like I looked at my girlfriend like, what the fuck is going on right now? Like, you know what I mean? Like it's like that contextual based toy thing of like, if you don't have all like the backstory and the lore of like following this guy on TikTok, like none of this makes sense. But like these are the people that are selling out like arenas now.
The original like meme musician who has had a huge impact far beyond what I ever imagined.
The true, lest we forget, the true like generator of based,
he was
not
the
the Pepes on 4chan. And I remember going to a Lil B concert in New York City in 2010, and the energy there was, that was the first time I saw something like that was like clearly a guy who would foster this crowd, this fan base from like internet memes and like shit posting, and like everyone knew like what a Lil B show was gonna like somebody got brought on stage and like knighted by Bass God, and this kid was like freaking out and like crying, and it was like, oh my god, like Bass God, thank you.
Like, fuck my
it's like,
bitch,
man,
God.
for real,
like
like
it was,
no, it was just shit like that, like he was just like doing crowd work, and everyone was like, thank you, Bass God, like, oh my god, Bass God.
It's
like,
so ridiculous. And
it was hyped, but I mean,
and he would always sign his tweets Lil B.
Yeah, always,
right,
always. Never change will be. But
what's he up to
I guess
these days?
he's still out there. He's still posting stuff. I don't know if like musically I haven't checked in a long time, but interesting Bay Area figure. One of the most interesting. So I guess we could probably leave it there about Lady Gaga. Like she's she might be an occultist, but we keep in mind she is a theater kid. So judge accordingly. Because they love being over the top and theatrical.
But I just can't be with you like this anymore, Alejandro. let me go.